All right, we're back. Zero and Go, episode number 5. And we got a special guest today.
What's up, guys? It's Gabe Chimenti.
Gabe.
Gabe, where you from, Gabe?
Redding, California. 3530.
35. Very proud.
Yeah, right? I got it tattooed on my ass.
So me and Gabe, I don't know, I think Mike, you know Gabe longer than I do.
Yeah, he came into our organization earlier, so that's why. But yeah, Gabe, I remember meeting Gabe.
We used to have our beef. That's what
I think we had a little bit of a beef. If you meet Gabe just like right off the bat, like at a bar or something, and you're like, who's this guy? Who the hell is this guy? He just walks in with that prowess and
such a douchebag.
Yeah, him and our other friend like Matt got into it too. But we're over that now. Now we're hella good friends.
I think about that all the time. I'm like, man, the beef I used to get into with.
It's funny how
Cardelli.
Yeah,
I don't even know how I'm still friends with them.
Yeah,
after that.
It's funny how sometimes you start out like as enemies or you don't like someone and they end up being like actually pretty good friends and you actually really like them.
Yeah, you're like too similar. At first.
Maybe, possibly, you might be.
Or
too
just
similar.
one of them. It's just a complete douchebag.
He just comes out a douchebag. Yeah.
Because that's a good first option.
Yeah.
They're being nice.
It's the same page for you. Alright, anyway, we were talking about cars right before the podcast started, so let's get back to that. We were talking about like the gas mileage and stuff, and Gabe's looking at buying a new car right now.
Yeah, see, the one that we've got up here is 4341. So I always thought that, like whenever you hear them talking about the gas mileage, I always thought that the higher number was for the freeway. Because you were just going at such a consistent pace that no, it's 40. It's lower for highway, higher for city.
You're right. It typically is like in every car.
Yeah. So why is that?
For some reason,
I've never seen that before.
Ford's turning the tables on us.
I know, man.
Is it because it's a hybrid? Maybe.
I don't think so. I think that it varies per car, I guess, but.
Will you pull up some other cars, August, so we can look at other ones?
Do you want to see like another hybrid, or are we curious about a gas car? Do you want to do electric?
Let's go see a Prius. What's a Prius you would buy, Gabe?
I don't know. I mean, one with just good gas mileage. You could
just type in Prius.
We'll do the 2017 Prius.
Just do the basic model, whatever it is.
I don't know if I have that kind of money. I don't know if Shenko pays me that well to buy a brand new Prius.
Come on, you're slinging rocks over there. Come on.
Just slinging rocks and saying names, dude.
You're not slinging rocks under the table under there?
Yeah, exactly. Illegal.
Yeah.
Sometimes.
So we got a brand new Prius.
So looking at.
We're talking about 2017 Prius, buying brand new at about $22,000.
The city's higher on that too.
$475.
Yeah, I always thought it was the other way around.
Okay, go to a gas car. Go to like a Subaru or something.
I'm gonna do a Subaru. I did a Yaris for my project because.
But that's a hybrid, right?
No, Yaris is all gas.
Oh,
It's one of the best fuel efficient cars. It's also Toyota.
Really?
Yeah. So they're a good comparison when you're trying to compare gas versus electric.
See, that one says the highway is higher than the city by 6 miles. So it might be the hybrid.
Yeah, I don't know. It's strange.
Because if you're going 25 or under in a hybrid, it's using all electricity.
Mm-hmm.
That's why.
Oh.
You're not using any gas.
That makes way more sense then.
So you have gas cars, you have hybrid cars, and then there's a Fusion that I was looking at that is both an electric, like as in you charge it, and it's gas, as in you fill the tank up. So like a hybrid will just switch back and forth, right? Like if you're going under 20,
yeah.
What do you say, 25 miles an hour?
25, yeah.
Yeah, it'll just switch over to electric, but you don't have to charge it because as you're driving it on the engine, it charges itself kind of thing. But there's a Fusion where you can plug it in and you can fill it up. So you could run out of gas and then just run on the electric for like 22 miles or something like that.
Wow.
So if you know you're just like doing grocery shopping or something, you just run the electric and then plug it back in when you get home.
Yeah, but that's like we were saying earlier, that's what I think I read a review and it was saying like an extra $20 to $40 a month on your electric bill.
I don't know if that's true because it's 12 cents.
It's got to be.
This was a review that someone said. Like they said, like my bill's only this much more.
Well, your bill's obviously going to go up, right?
Yeah, it's going to go up.
And $20 to $40, that seems reasonable, right?
Yeah. Well, that just sucks because that means like, I mean, obviously, if I were to do that, I would accrue that. Like, I wouldn't make my roommates pay for it, but It just sucks because it's like, how do you find out what that is actually costing a month?
Yeah. How do you
to split that?
Yeah.
You know,
that would be hard.
Yeah.
Maybe they have like gauges or something for that where they can tell
you?
if you're pulling from something. Like a certain
that
outlet or something.
that might be like a good app or something. I don't know. We made that into
To
app.
be able to tell.
Yeah, like some technological gadget or something you can just add on to like that wall. The outlet in that wall.
And tell you what, like,
and it tells you how much
like
you're
how
using,
much you're pulling
and
from
then
it.
it'll go straight to your phone. Like I used this much in the past 2 weeks.
That's a smart invention if they don't have one already.
Yeah.
So I think so I was in Tahoe like last weekend, and you're seeing these the Teslas. They're up in the snow and everything. I mean, I think it's really interesting that you're seeing Tesla.
Well, they have
they send one to space. Is that what I saw?
Yeah. So you know how Tesla, Mr. Elon Musk himself. You know how most people when they send things off, they send off like concrete and anything like this. Tesla sent off his only brand new sports car model in the world and just launched into space to test like his new rocket. Right now we're watching the new Falcon Heavy that just got launched into space. Apparently it was a successful launch by SpaceX today from Elon Musk himself. It's been all over Twitter. I was looking at it a little earlier today.
And they had simultaneous landings.
Isn't that phenomenal?
That's crazy. Look at it. Same exact time.
Wait, what's happening here?
Perfect.
Wow.
Perfect unison.
So they launched them up and then they brought them back down to prove that you can use like a spacecraft
Over and over.
yeah, like a car.
Spacecraft split while I was in air, and then it came down simultaneously on 2 landing pads right next to each other.
Wow.
They're just trying to.
That's pretty incredible. But the reason why the Teslas work so well in the snow is because they're four-wheel drive. Every Tesla is all-wheel drive.
I know, but isn't it phenomenal? And I think so when I drive back home down to Southern California on Highway 5.
I think chugging a beer is cool. You got just throwing cars into space. You know?
What are you doing with your life?
Yeah, exactly. Bull moves.
We're doing shoeies over here.
Yeah, exactly.
Elon Musk is throwing cars into space.
But what were you saying about Southern California, Tesla?
Well, it's just like, you used to see, one of the biggest things about electric cars used to be that you can't drive them for a very long period of time. But I mean, I'm driving in my little gas Honda on these Teslas, zooming by on Highway 5 heading down to SoCal. That's like 300 miles. And they're making it all the way down there, no problem.
What's the range for a Tesla?
I think the new ones are like 250 or 275 at most. They're not quite to 300 yet.
What do you mean?
Like how many miles you can go?
Oh, okay.
With on a single charge. But with the new like Tesla superchargers, you can charge your battery to like halfway in like 15 minutes. So it takes a little bit longer than like filling up your car with gas, but it's not like significantly longer. It's an extra maybe 10 minutes.
Yeah. So I wonder what's after this. You know, you've got a battery powered car. What's next? Because you know at some point there's going to be. What'd you say?
The Boring Company going underground.
What do you mean?
Have you seen that?
No.
Well, that's one of his companies, the Boring Company, and they're digging tunnels under Los Angeles, and they're having the car go up on like skates basically and get dropped down underground and then shot off like a subway, and then it's just hyper. So you avoid all the traffic, and I don't know how fast they go, maybe 200 miles an hour or something underground, but yeah.
It's only for certain vehicles, or like how does that work?
Yeah, I'm guessing. Yeah, like
so
for
how does that work
Teslas
with
or
traffic? Like if you go underground,
because you pull over to the side like on a parking spot and
oh my gosh.
Yeah, exactly.
But what dictates like who gets to go down there and who doesn't?
So everyone gets to go down there. So I think the idea is that if you need to get to a different area of the city, you hop on these little like side landings, kind of like what this video is demonstrating. We just pulled up Elon Musk's Boring Company is demonstrated. He used this in a TED Talk. So you kind of get on this little raft right here, and then you jump onto this Hyperloop, and it shoots you out and gets you across the city, and then it puts you back up. We need to get somewhere like in the close.
So it's basically like a subway where you're going from one station to the next.
For your own personal car.
Yeah,
for your car. Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah, he's been working on this for a long time. And he finally kind of got the permits and stuff. And then there was a story about Elon Musk, how he expanded a freeway right by his house because he wanted...
Wait, you said he got the permits and stuff? Like, he has the okay to do this already?
I think he's testing it outside of LA. I'm not 100% sure, but he's like... But he might already be in LA. I know, like, they're already digging and stuff. I know they're doing that. I don't know if it's, like, at a demo site or if it's in LA. That's what I'm confused about. But so, Elon Musk donated a whole bunch of money, and he widened the freeway right to where his house is. But it's weird. It's like a strange, like, societal experiment because if you widen the freeways, it actually increases the traffic because more people go that way now, and they think it's going to be shorter.
Yeah,
because they have wider lanes or more lanes, and it actually slowed it down. And so, like, he learned a lot from that, and then that's one of his ideas that helped him create this. And so that's like a huge lesson. Like he's trying to figure out all these like societal impacts he's going to have once he implements this.
But see, I wonder how, like, because the Tesla, like, going batteries and that's supposed to be like more of an environmentally friendly like approach to it, right? How is digging underground, like, I feel like that's in some way going to mess with something, like, within the city, you know, like...
Definitely, especially in LA, you have a bunch of pipes. And
yeah, I mean, like, how is that...
You're definitely going to have issues.
Yeah, there's no way it's going to be as clean as that.
But what makes this more dirty than riding on top of the surface, though?
What makes it more dirty?
Yeah, or more non-environmentally friendly.
So, well, okay, is the car... Going back to the question of what car's being used, is it just Teslas and battery or electric cars, or do you have a car that, you know, emits like smog and stuff like that?
Yeah,
going
and it
underground.
gets like trapped.
Now it's trapping underground.
That'd be like super unhealthy air quality.
Yeah, I don't know how he's gonna.
So is the car off when it goes underground?
This is all stuff he's like currently figuring out because
good question.
My guess is like if they do have to have gas cars, then they might have to have like vents or something,
right?
Like some filter process.
Yeah. You're going to need, like, fans to suck it out, too.
Allowing people to get on one of those skates and go underground, that's a huge issue in itself.
But if it's more like a train where you go on and then it, like, transports you, then I feel like...
You have to, like, turn off your car or something.
Yeah. Well, but, and like you were saying, like, filtering it out, right? Like, think about how much... So, let's hypothetically say the car is on, right? And it can be any car. Mm-hmm. If it's not underground, driving around, like in LA, you see all the smog, right?
Yeah.
So you know it's sitting there, and there's no way to, like, you know, filter it out. You can't just stand outside and filter it out necessarily, but to have it underground and filtering it from the ground out might clear the air outside of, like...
Because a portion of those cars
are
going to be underground.
Yeah, so I may have worded that strangely, but like to have the air filtered before it comes out into the air where everyone's walking around might actually clear it, if you think about it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Some proportional amount.
Right.
Yeah.
And you're saying that smog that goes underground, that's going to be created by the cars going underground?
Right. If it's any car that can go underground, and let's say the car is still on...
If the car is driving, it's going to produce smog.
Right. And so to have it filtered out from the ground out might actually clear the air out top because there's so many cars that are now underground. That,
exactly. So it can
actually
act as a filter.
Right. It can actually act as a filter.
And I'm not sure how the smog works, but I don't know if it would naturally seep underground because there's like openings and stuff. Would it naturally seep underground? I don't know the density of.
Yeah,
smog.
I don't know. Yeah.
And if it naturally goes underground, then it's going to filter up anyways, right?
Right.
So those are all important questions to ask.
We should get Elon Musk on the phone right now.
Yeah. Elon, I got some good ideas for you.
Listen,
just hire us.
Yeah, exactly.
Your think tank, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
I mean, what I'm so curious about is, I mean, we're so prone to earthquakes here. Like, how does that...
Especially in the SoCal area?
Yeah, like the San Andreas Fault right there. I don't know if that has a big, like... potential problem if you're digging significantly underground.
It has to. It will. It's
well, because look, it's not like this is like... I mean, this is like a whole nother world underground. It's not like just a tunnel. Like, that's open space in the video that we're looking at here. You know, like that's just open. That's not like just a little tiny tunnel.
It might be crazy if you have like a water pipe and it breaks and now you have water all over your railways. Or how does that affect it? Is there earthquakes, fires? How does
if you're close to the ocean, like a tsunami or something like that.
Yeah, tsunami.
That
goes underneath.
Right now, everyone's screwed.
Everyone's fucked. They're all drowning.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that'd be a miserable way to go.
Yeah. And I was reading this PPIC article. It's like the Public Policy Institute of California, and they were saying in there that there's a 99% chance there's going to be an earthquake magnitude 6.7 or higher within the next 3 decades. And in Northern California, it's 97%. And so we're expecting a pretty big earthquake relatively soon. And so if they're making this and that's implemented by the time that relatively big earthquake hits, we don't know how that's going to impact everything.
Yeah.
And if that caves down on people and in there, and that's going to be brutal. But
there's so much money, though. There's so much... Think about the amount of money that's going to get invested into this. like
they're definitely thinking of all those things.
Oh yeah, but I mean, like even so, they, like if there's enough money there, they're gonna be like, fuck it. Let's just do it anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
For them, it's like, well, bad things are out of our control, like no
Yeah.
matter what. So let's just go do something and go make money while we're at it. I mean, they're going to happen regardless.
I'm actually reading, kind of getting towards the sociology topic. I'm actually reading a book. It's on environmental justice and stuff like that, and it kind of documents like certain situations where big investors, since they have so much more money involved in like a certain, like in this case in the book, it's involving like building of parks and stuff like that. Like people are lobbying to build parks, but there's so many big time investors that are in like government and things like that, that if they don't see how it makes enough money, then they'll just find a way to say no to it. Like even if everything's pointing in the right direction, they'll kind of way. So like kind of relating to this, it's like even with all these issues, if there's enough money thrown around.
So if it's not making profit, they're not going to implement that.
And that's like, or they find ways. It's not like that direct.
Or
it's not like they're saying
find
like,
ways to make money from it.
Yeah, like it's not like they're not saying like when they're lobbying to, like LA for example, there was a huge park that there was some bonds put together by the city to create this park, and it's actually now. It is in place, and they're making some renovations to it. But some years back, when it was the first idea came up, there was a some kind of plant, some like oil plant or something, or waste, like a dump, that they wanted to put in the same area that they wanted to build this park, and the money was already there to build this dump and this or waste facility. There you go. Mm-hmm. The money was already there to build it. And then these lobbyists came in and like said like you guys didn't go through the right laws to pass this, because this is not environmentally friendly and things like that. But for the longest time, they just pushed that protest off and just delayed it until hoping that they could push the waste facility through. Yeah. But these lobbyists didn't give up, and they actually were able to prevent the waste facility from being built, and then instead they built a park. So like with something like this, from what I read in the book, is that there's so much delay on those protests, right? That just prolong it as long as possible until we can.
Yeah, people it's almost
bored.
Like
they get bored. And they
lose interest.
Yeah, just try to delay it.
Other things come up.
But when it comes time to passing a bill to try to build something, like if the right people are involved, it can go just like that. Yeah. Yep. But to go against it, they'll just push it off and push it off. So to this, it's like, with all the issues that we're talking about, if there's enough money involved, man, it doesn't matter.
And the right people get involved.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it'll just go right through.
This is why when there are guys like at Amazon who are looking to tackle healthcare.
Yeah, Bezos. And we talked about that in the last podcast.
And that's why they always say follow the money, because it'll lead you down like the right path, like majority of the time. But Bezos taking on healthcare. That's going to be insane.
That's going to be Morgan, so fucking
Bezos,
interesting.
And there's one more, I think.
There's like some of like the top 3 companies in the world right now are looking to tackle healthcare and revamp healthcare.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Bezos, J.P. Morgan, and who's the third one?
You can look that up, August. But Bezos,
another big name.
Bezos did take over Whole Foods too, and I don't know how that's going at all. Does anyone know anything about that? How Whole Foods has changed since Amazon took them over?
I knew it changed like initially, where they started to like kind of lean away from their original like ideology, I guess, at Whole Foods, where they wanted to like provide cheaper options because Whole Food is like whole paycheck. You're spending so much money on your food, and I knew they were trying to take away some things, and it didn't go over well with their market share, and so they like re-implemented their original ideologies back. But I haven't heard anything like in the past month or two about it.
Because I heard some complaints about the workers that worked in the warehouses for Amazon and how they were being mistreated and they're getting yelled at, and like they have to run everywhere and like get everything done, because obviously it's time sensitive with Amazon. I mean, you can get stuff in like an hour or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like they're not treating the employees like how Whole Foods would normally treat their employees or before the merger.
And they brought that in.
And now they brought that mentality in, that business, like hard-ass, hard-nosed mentality in. And I think there's been some conflict. I think I read something about that. That's why I was asking you. I didn't know if you knew anything about that at all.
That's interesting, though, because I feel like with different companies, you almost have to keep them separate. Like Amazon and Whole Foods, they're so different.
Their nature.
Their nature and the people that like use it. Like oftentimes you'll go to Whole Foods because you like the experience of shopping there better than at like Save Mart, because like you get friendlier employees because they pay them a bit more, and like the food you get is higher quality.
It feels less like a grocery store, more like a market. Like,
yeah,
exactly. That's the right way to say it. Like,
totally.
You just feel like it's more interactive.
I think that's where like McDonald's did a really good job with Chipotle, is that they didn't bring that like just like super like we're just getting your food out like.
Does McDonald's own Chipotle?
McDonald's owns Chipotle,
wow.
but
I did not know that.
One of the agreements when they sold Chipotle was that they weren't going to change their philosophy to be more like McDonald's, and so that's why Chipotle still has like the all natural chicken and all that sort of stuff.
I did not know that.
Yeah,
think about it. If Chipotle looked like a McDonald's, I feel like McDonald's going in there. A lot less people.
You're going to lose
there.
A lot of customers.
It would feel like going into a Taco Bell rather than a Chipotle.
Right.
It's
they have
experience.
totally different like demographics. Like they definitely have a different like target market. Yeah. Completely.
Well, I mean, you almost went to McDonald's on your way here, right? So, like, why would you want to go to McDonald's? Like, what is the draw to you? I mean, you're a college kid making a decent amount of money, looking to buy cars.
You don't go into McDonald's and think you're going to get like anything quality whatsoever. You don't think that. Like there's no one goes into McDonald's. And
no one is naive. I hope no one is naive.
Yeah, no one goes in there expecting like, oh man, I'm going to get a high quality burger. It's like you just go here because it's just shit food for cheap and it tastes good. You know? It's like, when have you ever heard shitty food tasting good?
Yeah, and it's convenient.
Yeah,
drive by. Here's
there's never a line.
Do my food. I'm out.
Yeah, like here's $3. Give me 4 doubles. You know?
Yeah.
They do have salads.
Here's the interesting like on a marketing take to it, right? Like you were saying, they didn't want to mix the McDonald's and Chipotle because Chipotle's meant to have like a higher quality feel to it, right?
Yeah.
But then McDonald's and these fast food places have like this like healthier menu, right? So it's like that same type of mentality of like quality food, but for cheap. So it's not as good, but for the target market, in their mind, they're getting a better quality food, even though if you compare it to like another place, it's still shit. So it's like it's weird how like they have a specific market that they're targeting, but somehow it like is pretty much the same across different companies, right? You kind of have the same demographic of people.
Yeah, I think that's important though for companies to be able to like keep their different entities separate.
Yeah,
because they're gonna have different target markets, different like philosophies behind them.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, you're gonna draw a different crowd, and you may lose the crowd that you currently have if you go to a different philosophy.
No, completely.
Yeah. That's why you always see that mistake of like when that high CEO or those executives come in and say, I'm not going to change my style at all. What worked over here is going to work over here, and you guys are going to conform to what I am bringing. Uh-huh. Like that's always a huge mistake to me. Like you have to go and like learn about that company, what they're all about, and like learn their values, and not force your old values on this new company or new organization. That's like a huge mistake that some CEOs and executives don't realize they're making.
You're talking about when a CEO is going into a new company?
Yeah, when they're going into a new company or they got hired at a new company and they try to bring everything like and like implement everything that it just was from their previous organization or company, and then it hardly ever works out.
It's impossible.
Yeah, it is, because like the world is so complex and dynamic. Like you can't just apply one methodology, one ideology, and apply it universally and work it out every time. It's just not going to work.
Well, and kind of go into this here because I'm reading some of what we're looking at here as far as Chipotle.
Yeah. So, okay. Yeah. But we're saying it was Berkshire, Buffett's company, for the healthcare. So it's Amazon, Berkshire, and J.P. Morgan, like 3 powerhouse companies.
Wow.
Go for it.
But I was going to say with this, they're saying food served fast and fresh ingredients, right? So much of this is marketing, dude. Like the quality of the food, if you were to compare it like side by side with like something McDonald's, I'm curious like where are they sourcing this food from, right? Because so much of it is the perception of it, right?
The presentation of
right.
it.
It might not even be the actual quality of the food, but like how they present it to you, certain like verbiage that they use, like the atmospherics, like when you walk into a place, like the colors of it, like how they're dressed, right? Like open counters, like things like that, where they're cooking the chicken in front of you. Like it gives you this feel like you're eating better, but who's to say that food's not coming from the same source, especially if McDonald's owns it?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Objectively speaking,
Right.
it might be the same, but subjectively you think it's something different. Almost like a placebo effect.
Exactly.
Along those lines.
Exactly.
True.
It's kind of fucked up.
I don't know, it's like, that makes you think of like In-N-Out. So I worked at In-N-Out for almost a year. I mean, but they are so good at quality food. Like they literally have timers on things, and like if the lettuce goes bad, you throw it out. If the meat's been sitting too long, it's gone. I mean, that shit's getting shipped in, and like it's cooked within 3 days, if not sooner, right? And it's really good. And it's like talking about how you get to see it.
You can tell that quality when you go into
yes.
In-N-Out compared to like McDonald's. There's definitely a quality difference between the two.
So there's the quality then. If we're comparing these places, is the quality in how it's cooked, or is the quality in where you get it? Because all you see is these coming from a truck, right? And they're fresh, right? They're not frozen. But
But I think In-N-Out does have higher quality standards where they get it from because...
Oh, maybe In-N-Out, okay. Yeah,
because they don't put stores within like a certain radius if they can't supply it with all the ingredients that they need.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay.
that's why you don't see them like all over the United States.
Right.
They're only in certain
sense.
areas.
And I think one of the biggest things that I noticed, at least being on the inside of In-N-Out, is that they really value their employees. I mean, my head manager was pulling over $200,000 a year. They sent him to Fiji because he was one of the top performers for his store.
They make that much money?
Oh yeah, for company. I mean, the dude was taking off about a month of work every 6 months just to go hang out with his family. You know, I mean, they take really, really good care of their employees, and they tell you like if you want to do that, there's a path you can go on and you can get there. And so what it does is what I noticed. One of the biggest reasons I didn't like looking there, or I didn't like working there as an adolescent, was because these people treat this job as they're making $100,000 CEO decisions. Every single one of them who's like kind of like a career there, that's how they treat it. And they will. Some of them get very, very vicious at you if you're wasting material, and they mark everything. If you waste a cup, it's marked. If you waste like a patty or cheese, it's marked, and you kind of get dinged, and then you start to lose out on promotions if you keep getting dinged like that often. They don't. I mean, I never really saw anyone get fired.
So you just have to get the same cup all day?
No. It's like.
Yeah.
So is it like dog eat dog? Like is it really competitive? Is it?
It is competitive. Like if you start out as a counter, and then if you want to go up to counter, you move on to fries. If you want to get good at fries, you go on to like wrapping the burger, and then you go on to cooking. It's like, but there's definitely. I think about it as like the military, because the guy who started it, he was in I think he was in World War One, and he had a military background. And it's just like the military. You come in as a private, and you work your way up. And the only way you get to the top is you all start at the very, very bottom, and you go all the way up. And that kind of
is that like most companies though? You start at the bottom.
Not very often, not anymore though.
Really?
Because I mean, you think about like because you can go get a degree and walk into a company at like a certain level. But like no matter where you're at, you have to start at the bottom unless you've had experience before working at an In-N-Out. It doesn't really matter.
That's a fair... Okay, but...
That's how they treat that culture.
No one came in, like say someone gets a degree in like retail management or something like that. They don't get to just walk in and become a manager of In-N-Out. You have to know the patty from inside out.
You got to start from the bottom. They send you to an In-N-Out university. I mean, they have their own university where they throw you in these stores.
Just like McDonald's.
McDonald's has that, yeah.
They throw you in these stores that are like just packed, and like it's a bunch of managers all trying to learn how to manage at once, and they said it's extremely hectic. The guys that I was associating with who went through it, and then they put you out in your own store and they see how you do.
McDonald's is the same way, dude. Again, going back to like shittier quality of food, but they have the same like philosophy and mentality. It's like the store managers at McDonald's have to go to a hamburger university, and they can pull in like close to 6 figures and shit like that.
Yeah, even more than that too.
Yeah. I mean, it's fucking crazy. I have some friends back home. They owned like 3 or 4 McDonald's in the Reading area, and they were pissing out money.
Seems like a great way to retire.
Right?
But something I really am dying to get into. I mean, we just had the Super Bowl come up. Go Eagles! And
what are you, a super hardcore
Name
Eagles
one
fan?
player on the Eagles.
I'm not a super.
Avoids the question.
Wentz, Ertz, Aguilar,
Right. Yeah.
Foles. I couldn't name the center. Of the
Kobe
defense.
Bryant.
But anyway, no, my whole East Coast family. All my East,
Allen Iverson or something, right?
Oh,
My baby.
my whole East Coast family is from the East, so like they were all rooting for him, so I naturally joined in. But I was so interesting. I always love watching the Super Bowl commercials. And Gabe, we know like you're a marketing minor with also a major in sociology. So what did you kind of take away from kind of like a weekend like this where it's such a grand scale? It's literally like an American holiday. And I mean, what were you able to like pull from this kind of an event?
Well, I mean, in Super Bowls in the past where I maybe wasn't drinking as much, I probably got a little bit more of an understanding of what was going on. But I think you can attest for that too, because I think you were passed out on the couch at one point. But.
Almost.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much money's built into the hype of it as opposed to the actual game. I mean, think about how many non-football fans pay attention to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, tune in for this game.
Just tune in, and every company benefits from this because everyone's going grocery shopping, everyone's putting bets down, everyone's buying, paper supplies, like shit like that. Like everything benefits in the market with something so as big as this because even if you're not a fan, you want to celebrate it.
Yeah, it's like
It's a holiday.
It's another holiday.
Yeah,
it's exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is one that typically it's just for guys football, but girls like it too because of commercials. So that's what they look forward to. So like, girls are into it as well, not just the males.
Talk about target audience, right? Like everyone, anyone is involved or can be involved in this.
Well, I remember when we were sitting down, we were talking about how one thing that we noticed there was kind of like a lot of like we talked about this on our podcast last time. How I mentioned that a lot of media is very positive. It's very in your face. We're always smiling. We're always really energetic. But I noticed a lot of really kind of like that flip flopped in the Super Bowl this Sunday. A lot of it, like some of it was very, very sad. A lot of it was really sad. It kind of like hit me really hard. Like, wow, this is really depressing.
Like commercials?
Yes.
Talk about there's a Verizon one that was like, is that which one is it? What are you talking? Which commercial are you talking about?
I know the Stella one was really sad. VaynerMedia.
Well, that one kind of made you like think, like oh fuck,
I think the cost per for 30 seconds of a commercial on the Super Bowl was like, I'll have to look that up. But
it's like $1 million or $2
yeah,
million.
I mean it's
expensive.
crazy, man.
I wouldn't be surprised if it's more than that. I mean, the amount of viewers you get and constant or repeated viewers because they put this on YouTube now, and so it doesn't just last for the Super Bowl; it lasts for like all the time on YouTube. And
it's not even like the commercial itself, right? Like when we were talking, like you pay for 30 seconds, and what is that? Could exceed 5 million. A 30-second commercial like that to make, I can't imagine cost 5 million to make.
Oh no,
oh,
you know what I
definitely
mean?
not.
Right. So I'm saying like the amount of money it costs to be involved in a commercial is so far exceeding the actual cost it was to make it that it's solely built on how many people are watching it. Right. It's just on the idea that so many people are going to see this that we're going to charge it $5 million. Right. It's like it just slowly goes up each year because more people are watching.
And the potential and the upside is exponential because think about Dilly Dilly and Bud Light. Like, they can just use that forever now. And, like, so many people have Dilly Dilly shirts and hats. Like, it's way more than just a commercial now. And so, like, they're going to make so much money just off that. So if you hit that golden ticket idea, like, that could set your company up for, like, huge profits for years.
And so it's more than just beer now, right? Like, the idea of it isn't Bud Light. I mean, it is. But, I mean, like, it's not even a matter of, like, you have to drink Bud Light. It's Dilly Dilly, right? Yeah. It's like the idea, right? It's this kind of shit's crazy.
I mean, like, I guess we have a small little focus group here with the four of us. I mean, are you guys drinking more Bud Light or Budweiser beer because of Dilly Dilly?
I've always been a Coors man.
Yeah,
so
I've always been a Coors. But I can't personally stand Bud Light.
But I do say Dilly Dilly. And
right.
I think that's something that's like in like our social group. We just say Dilly Dilly, and like I see Dilly Dilly hats and stuff like that. So even though you don't drink Bud Light, I mean, you're
doesn't
still
mean you can't participate.
Yeah, it doesn't mean you can't participate. It doesn't mean like Bud Light's still not going to profit out of it somehow.
I'm curious. We should find out if they actually...
I mean, I imagine it helped to some degree.
Because if I'm saying dilly dilly and I have a dilly dilly hat, some other dude who had never heard of it could see that dilly dilly and like, what is that? And then he looks it up. Oh, it's Bud Light, and like, oh, I'll try Bud Light, or I'll drink more Bud Light now, or something. So like, we could affect other people even though we're not drinking it ourselves.
It's so much of it is. It's like almost subconscious, right? They just like
it's subliminal.
they blast you with all this information, whether or not you're paying attention to the actual like product itself. And the next time you go to think about something, right, and someone says dilly dilly, you think of Bud Light.
Yeah,
right?
it's more. Yeah,
yeah, you know. So it's like this weird implementation they have where it's like you don't even have to be concerned about what it is we're talking about. Just be familiar with the sounds, and you'll end up buying it.
And if you're 50-50, like I don't
It's
care.
almost like you're training a dog.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So it's like training a dog, exactly. And so when you're in a 50-50 position, and you're like, I don't care whether I like Bud Light and Coors. If someone says, what one do you want? Bud Light might come to your mind first.
That might be enough to just put you over the edge to buy that over another one.
Yeah.
So it says the nation's largest beer brand suffered its biggest annual volume decline ever in 2017, dropping 5.7%, according to Beer Marketers Insight. It lost 0.8 percentage points of market share, selling at 15.4%. So although it may be a really great marketing strategy, it doesn't seem like... I mean, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, that quality, I guess, supersedes...
Well, what this, we don't know
curious.
what does this do to the legalization of marijuana, what other factors, and health promotional organizations, stuff like that. But you still want to be, even though maybe your market's declining, you still want to be the best in your market, regardless.
Well, and again, how much of the market is really like the product of Bud Light anymore? But you know, there's also T-shirts and hats. Like Bud Light's profiting on that.
Yeah, and they're going to different markets, not just beer, apparel,
right.
clothing.
So it's like, as much as it might not be the actual Bud Light sales itself, how much money is being made on apparel now? And accessories and
That's
shit
a
like
smart
that.
way to do it, because if your market is shrinking, then you want to go into something else, or you survive some other way.
You have to move laterally at some point. Yeah, you have to kind of make those moves.
What else? Any other topics?
Was that the sociology that you guys were talking about?
Well, I mean,
Not quite.
it's to an extent, right? Like, so what we're talking about is like subliminal, right? And like things that are like making you think a certain way, right? Sociology is like the definitions can vary depending on who you're asking, with like theorists and stuff like that. But essentially, it's the study of society in what it is and how it is they behave, or interact with each other, right? But some theorists will argue, that society makes you who you are, right? And so you're born into what society believes you to be.
Yeah,
and there's other ways,
nurture.
And then there's other things where like you're
like,
born a certain way, right? And you are who you are, and then eventually society will turn you into.
I think how society shapes you; those are more the social constructionists,
right?
And the people who are like who you are when you're born. That's more the biological essentialists,
right?
So it's like those two ways, and like we've known for the longest time, it's both.
Yeah.
And now it seems like the more social constructionists are really trying to take that over now and give biology less of its due than it deserves.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're definitely getting like really aggressive about it.
And I think you see that in academics, like being like, are you a sociology major?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. See, you're gonna have like, I feel like you're gonna have a lot of postmodernism in your teachings, and you're gonna learn like everything is like socially constructed. And it's just like arbitrary power. And
that's what I mean.
And a big one is you probably see this a lot. I think we kind of touched on it earlier in the earlier conversation we had, was the identity politics and like how like your race or class matters more than who you are as an individual. Mm-hmm. And so I think you've probably gotten a lot of that, huh?
Yeah, I mean, sociology is like, there's so much that goes into it. It's, at times, it just sounds like, I'll be honest, sometimes it just sounds like a bunch of horseshit. And other times you're like, damn, like that's, you never really think to look at it in that way.
What makes it sound like horseshit?
Well, it's just like, okay, so there's a lot of theories out there that are, like, they make sense. But there's like a certain type of like mentality within sociology where it's don't worry about like this is more of like a modern type of idea, but it's like don't worry about winning or losing to other people. Like this is all an equal playing field kind of thing, right? And like whether you win or you lose, whether it's academically, whether it's in terms of your career and things like that, in some way, shape, or form, like you're still perfect or you're still just as good. And so like in class the other day, we had like some kind of competition. We split up the class and we had to go up on the board. She would read off a definition. We have to put our eraser on the word that it was describing, right? Mm-hmm. And at one point, like one team clearly won, and this is kind of like a minute example, but if you take enough sociology classes, you get like this is like a general thought process. One team clearly won, but because we put up a big enough argument, she just gave us half a point each.
So everybody gets a trophy.
Everyone wins. So it's not about that, like this is just all about having fun. In terms of like grading the assignments, she has told us beforehand, don't worry. Like don't stress about it, don't try so hard, like just turn it in, And you're just like, okay, so what? Half-ass this? Yeah. And I'll get the same result as someone who's studying just as hard? So it's like, that's like a general, so that's like the bullshit end, like in terms of its concepts, right? And that's like a general thought process.
Yeah. And I'm sure that goes on in the whole department, not just
yeah. It's like, don't worry, don't fret, like just give it your best. So this is like, so my best can just be half-ass and you'll give me it anyways, and you'll just grade me as good as someone else who's trying just as hard.
How does that make you feel?
It frustrates the hell out of me, but
I'm sure it does.
But there's other times where you're like, shit, I got so much other shit going on, like, fuck, I'll just put this together randomly and I'll get a fucking A.
I'll write random Spanish.
Yeah, exactly.
But do you think it's like worse off, like for everybody involved, like in society?
I think in society nowadays, there's like this natural, or I shouldn't say natural, but it's almost like a false sense of entitlement. And that might sound cliche at this point. Everyone says that. Mm-hmm. But like if you think about it, like, and I can be guilty of this at times, but like kids our age, right? Doesn't matter how much you work, you just want the next raise, right? Yeah. You want to work as much as possible, but not, or you want to work as little as possible, but make a lot of money, right? Yeah. So it's like this contradictory thought process where it's like you want to get everything for not doing anything.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm guilty of it. I'm sure you said you're guilty of it too.
Yeah, it's like we all are.
But I mean, you hear a lot of shit about that, right?
Yeah.
But in sociology classes, it's almost like they are like building on that idea. Like, yeah, this is okay,
So this isn't just secluded to one professor. This is,
you hear about this like generally, like throughout classes because it's more discussion, right? Everything's more discussion. You can read. In my approach to sociology, which I think has benefited me, and if it ever came down to me having to like discuss an essay, right? If I could prove my point enough, then it would be okay, right? And so like when we're talking like sociology of theory, everyone interprets a theory differently, right? And so if you can just prove that enough that whether it's right or wrong, if you can prove it enough, that's fine. And so if you can argue the point enough, you're going to pass to an extent. Mm-hmm. And there's no right or wrong, right? It's just how you interpret it.
That's the thing about the social sciences and the humanities. If you become articulate and you formulate your arguments, you win everything. Yeah. The best arguer and the best debater and the best thinker and writer will win everything. And so it will just go out there and destroy everyone. And so we don't even know if that guy's 100% correct. He's just good at arguing.
Yeah.
But what you were saying, Gabe, is that like in your classes, you don't even have to be like the one with the better argument. You just have to be someone with a good enough argument to get a passing grade.
Yeah. We can put like in my theory class, which is cool if you think about it. Like it kind of spawns some creativity, right? It allows some people
different ideas,
think outside the box.
Yeah.
But on a grand scheme of things, right? When we're talking about people in society and how they interact and the sense of entitlement, it like diminishes that aspect to an extent because some people just feel like they should be right anyways, right? I've been, people have always told me I'm right, like I should be right now, kind of thing.
And maybe if you go and bring that argument to someone that's not a sociology major, then they're not going to have anywhere close to the amount of knowledge on that particular thing, and so then they may take what you bring to the table as the automatic truth, and that can be problematic.
Yeah. So there's really no, if we're talking like sociology and then people with different mindsets, there's still no right or wrong way, right? But there is like a natural like idea that like you should, within capitalism at least, right? You get what you deserve, right? And then sociology is just give it your best effort, and you can still achieve the same results. Which it's still you're at a point where there's no right or wrong necessarily, but at the same time, it diminishes, in my mind, some people's value of work. Because now in sociology speaking, people are not doing as much because they don't feel like they need to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you say there's no right and wrong, I can see, like, there's definitely a part of that that's true, but then it depends on the context.
Right,
so,
don't get me wrong, there's definitely
yeah.
certain rights and certain wrongs.
Yeah, so,
but like...
Yeah, when a lot of, like, sociology and, like, social sciences, like, there may not be, like, an absolute right or wrong.
Right.
But it depends what your goals are, and whatever your goals are will determine whether you're more right or you're more wrong. Because let's say, like, you want a society that produces stronger individuals, smarter individuals. Well, there's certain ways you can go about society and crafting society to make better individuals, stronger and more intelligent individuals. And there's other societies that do a worse job of that. And so there's certain, like, values and strategies within that good society which like manifest stronger individuals.
So the sociological thought process behind your argument is who determined right in the first place.
That's what I'm saying. Everything's based off your goal and what you're aiming at.
Right.
Because that will define how you get to that goal and what are your pathways. And who defines right and wrong, that can be also...
That's shaped by society in a sociological perspective.
Yeah.
No, yes, that's partly right, but it's also partly wrong because it's shaped by your evolutionary biology and psychology. Because your nervous system is attuned to know when you're not speaking truthfully. So that's why when you're lying, you feel like you're coming apart. Mm-hmm. And that's why when you're speaking truth, you feel powerful and you feel like you're in the right place and it's a more meaningful place. So your biology and because your serotonin level tells you where you are in the hierarchy. People with lower serotonin are typically down at the bottom because they keep losing and they keep losing again. The serotonin is like hunched over, and you see that through their physical posture. That's why Jordan Peterson says stand up straight with your shoulders back, because that will show people that you're higher in the hierarchy. Mm. And the higher you are in the hierarchy, the social hierarchy and the competence hierarchy, the more likely you are to feel positive feelings, and you go about things in a more smooth and positive way.
And so, and I wish you could come sit in my sociology classes and say that. I believe me, like totally. Yeah. But the argument that you would have, they're a lot smarter than me, but they would dive more in depth into how, like, okay, the idea that standing up straight, means that you're higher than our hierarchy, right? That concept of doing that.
It doesn't mean you're higher in the hierarchy.
But it gives a visual look. I'm giving you
the appearance as if you were higher in the hierarchy.
I'm giving you a potential argument that they would provide.
Please give me. Yeah. I know where exactly going to go because I know their postmodernist ideology.
It's the idea that why you feel like you need to do that is something created by society. So who's to say that means that you're better? Why can't you go like this and still be smart? Like that would be.
But no one's saying that's not the case.
No one's. Well, I'm saying
because just because you're hunched over doesn't mean you can't be smarter.
No.
Than someone else.
You're saying by a visual appearance, it gives the impression. If you were to compare this person to this person, you would choose the one person over the other, and that decision to choose them would be an argument that they would make is a sociological construct.
It's not correct,
but that would be that argument.
Yeah. But then they would they would have a hard time explaining why lobsters do the same thing, and lobsters are 350 million years old. That's older than trees.
Yeah.
So
no, I'm not.
It's not socially constructed. It's not socially constructed because it's been in our being for so long. And how do our nervous systems attune? The most primordial nervous system that we have, and our most primordial systems are attuned to that. And so it's something that we're biologically bred with, and that's how our hierarchies are set up. And so you think it's socially constructed. No one just socially constructed that.
Right, and it's not necessarily it's not necessarily like someone just came up with this idea, right? And it's a construct like, boom, I just stamped it as that. It's not that. But like through evolution, right? And you're talking like, okay, so with the lobsters is a form of dominance. Is that what you're making it sound like? As if it's like a...
I would say more it's a competence hierarchy.
Okay, so in their... And I don't know shit about lobsters, so I'm not trying to make it sound like I'm studying lobsters, like I watch a lot of Discovery Channel or anything. But in a lobster society, if you will, how did it get to that point? Was it just like a reaction bodily, or was the reaction based on that the societal aspect of that?
It's probably the Darwinian survival aspect, because lobsters will fight and they'll get better territory. They'll be more likely to mate. Just like humans are, same thing.
Isn't it a dominance hierarchy than lobsters?
You can say dominance, but the problem with saying dominance, that then you get into arbitrary power and get into like more of the Marxism.
So define dominance versus competence then.
Because to be competent, you're not dominating people all the time. If you're in a dominant, that makes it more seem like I'm controlling you and I have power over you. But like when you're in a competence hierarchy, the person who is most competent in that field will rise. Like the best computer gamer, or he would rise in that competence hierarchy because he's not dominating other people and like pushing them down and holding them down. His skills just rise above, and he's more competent in that field. And so that's why like depression pills work on lobsters, because their serotonin is lined up just like ours.
Their serotonin nervous system.
Yeah.
I think.
No, like I said, I wish you could come and sit in one of my classes, because it's there's so much of it's funny because so much of sociology is the idea that your whole life you've been projected on as far as certain things, right?
Which is true in some aspects,
right? But so much of what they're teaching you is a projection of their concept. So it's like what
projection of a projection?
Yeah, I'm saying that their argument is like your whole life you've been projected on as far as blah blah blah. Right, but so to an extent, it's like projection within a projection. It's like the whole concept behind sociology is therefore a projection, is it not? And that's like something you would want to say, but you might open up fucking Pandora's box in a sociology class.
Hell would raise.
You keep your mouth shut, dude. You shut your fucking mouth.
Which is so funny
because that's not the thought process.
Exactly. Yep. A lot of those liberals teach compassion until you don't go against their ideology. Then they will murder you. They will hit you with bike locks.
So here's you want to.
They will destroy you.
I don't know if I ever told you this.
In their ideology.
I don't know if I ever told you this, Mike, and I think you'll get a kick out of this. So I was in my sociology class. This was 2 semesters ago, and we were talking about. It was pre-election, okay. And
I have so many. I need to write down so many questions. Got so many. I know. Okay, go ahead.
I don't know if I've told you this, but so the day before, or this was on a Tuesday, and the election was on a Wednesday, I believe. And that Tuesday, my sociology teacher, he was talking about how there's some guy who predicts the election before each election, and he's never been wrong. And he was telling us, the whole class, like, this guy's never been wrong. Look, he's predicted Hillary. Like, when we come back, we're going to talk all about it and all this stuff. Or like, making it out like as if Hillary was fucking set in stone already.
What an idiot.
And so,
a vast majority of people did.
No, absolutely. Yeah. And so when we came back, right, obviously that was not the case. And so we literally turned the whole class into a discussion of why pretty much, Trump is a shittier option, right? And after he's already been elected, right, that's instead of like, kind of moving on and accepting it, it was more like, how much bullshit is this and blah, 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 which is totally whatever, right? And so they're asking, how you feel about the election, blah, blah, blah. And, you guys would know me, you guys know me. I decided to raise my hand. And I was like, well, I'll be honest. What I asked him was, because this was basically like a shitting on Trump, right? And I mean, for the most part, the guy can deserve it at times, but this was just like, clearly we knew who he voted for, right? Mm-hmm. And, which is a projection for going back to that conversation.
Which you shouldn't do as a professor, by the way.
Is right, exactly. So it's like something that, if you're trying to keep it an open book, you shouldn't necessarily direct it in such
You're not
a
supposed
class.
to show like that much bias,
Right.
And like saying like he's actually shitty, and like
Right.
you shouldn't think that way.
Right.
That's
in
terrible
a
for
class
professor
like
to
that,
do.
especially. But so I raised my hand and I asked him. I was like, "So, Professor, like, had this been Hillary who had won, would we be having the same type of discussion right now? Like, would we be talking about how like blowing the whole class up about the election? Would we be doing this?"
That's a brilliant question.
And he asked. His honest to God response was, Gabe, I'm not too sure. And so that was enough for me. I said, okay. And he goes, well, who did you vote for? He asked me, and I said, because when he said that,
to say that
when he said that
this
to me,
guy's the worst professor ever.
When he said that to me, that he said he wasn't sure, that was enough for me to know. Like, okay, so this is just a bunch of bullshit. And so he said, well, so who'd you vote for? And I was like, I'd rather not say. I'd rather keep that to myself. And he goes, well, come on, who was it? And I was like, to me, I said this. I was like, I still tried to keep it like, pretty even keeled, right? And so I said, for me, it was a lesser of two evils. I said that, and he goes, well, what does that mean? What does that mean? And so, and the girl next to me, who also voted for Trump, she kind of had the same mentality as I did, and she's nudging me in the shoulders, telling me to shut up. Don't say it. And I was like, well, yeah. I was like, honestly, I voted for Trump. And literally, the class was in an uproar, dude. Our class, I kid you not, some girl started crying. No way! Some girl started crying and saying how Trump deported her mom, basically, even though Trump just became president, so that was Obama that deported your fucking mother. So she started crying, right? And so my professor goes, oh, so you're a racist. And I said, I did not say that. I was like, I voted for him because I figured it was more of a business side of it, and I can relate to that. So I voted for him for the business aspect of it. He goes, well, Trump's a racist. And I said, that's your opinion. And he goes, well, if you voted for Trump, that means that you're a racist, so you support racism. I was like, you're connecting two dots that you shouldn't connect. That's not even a fair argument. And so then, again, I have other kids yelling back at me, right? Saying how that, because I voted for Trump, therefore I'm a racist. So get this. Some weeks prior to this discussion, we were learning about Reverend James Bevel. If you want to look him up, he led he basically led the youth, like everyone in college, to the civil rights movement. Like he was the one who got the younger kids involved. And believe it or not, that piece of shit died in prison for molesting his daughter.
Whoa.
Molesting his daughter. And so he put him up on the screen talking about how big of a deal he was. So I asked him, I said, hey, you remember Reverend James Bevel, right? And he said, yes. And I was like, and we talked about him for a whole class and how great he was. And he said, yeah. And I was like, okay, so does that mean you support molestation?
You said that to the professor?
Yeah. And he goes,
Gabe, you're my hero.
He goes, Gabe, your opinion is bullshit. Verbatim. And I started laughing and I said, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I said, thank you. Yeah, dude, it was bad.
Gabe,
So
I
there's
love you.
sociology in a nutshell for you. Yeah.
What'd you end up getting in that class?
So here's the I called my dad right after that class. I said, Dad, I just want you to know I may fail this class. And he said, okay, what's going on? And I said, this guy provoked me in a sense where I felt if he was going to come at me like that, I was going to come at him the same. I explained to him the whole scenario. And he said, okay, if something comes of it, just let me know. I'll come get involved. We'll get the dean involved, like everything like that. And he was prepared to make it a big deal. Fortunately, the class was strictly based on 3 Scantron tests.
Ooh.
So I passed all 3 of them. So he couldn't fail me.
Attaboy.
But yeah, so it was a pretty feel. And him and I, before that moment, were pretty interactive. Like we were pretty interactive with each other. Like, hey, how's it going, professor? Stuff like that. Since then, we will seriously walk past each other and we won't look at each other. We will not acknowledge each other.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how crazy the left has gone.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Dude, for the bravery you
I've
had
never heard
to do
anything
that.
like that. That's a great story.
Yeah.
That's a great fucking story.
See, if you're not in the social science or humanities, you probably won't get that in your business classes and stuff. But like what we're in the social science,
Yeah.
that's like we see that a lot.
Yeah.
And it really.
Oh, are you social science? Are you sociology major?
Yeah. No, I'm in the social science. I do like political science,
Oh, okay.
economics, and psychology.
Okay.
So like I'm in the sociology is really close to politics, political science.
Sure.
Like, so I know exactly because I've gotten that too.
Yeah.
I know exactly where you're coming from.
Yeah.
I've taken some of those classes and stuff, and I know how like the lefties treat you in there.
Yeah.
But to do that, I'm honestly, from personal experience, that's so much bravery and courage nowadays. Like people don't understand how much bravery and courage you have to be a conservative or have a conservative point of view in such a liberal place.
And see,
because I'm surprised. I'm honestly glad you're here and you didn't get murdered, because those guys can get so vicious. Like,
and so that girl that was crying, right? I went up to her after the class, and I told her, I was like, I want you to know my intentions were not, to have it end up this way. Like, I didn't even want to tell the teacher that I voted for him.
Yeah.
And she said, I know. Like, he was a little bit. She even admitted, like, he was a little too much.
He was a bit much. Yeah.
So I was fortunate in that, but like I said, I mean, people were yelling from the front of the. I was in the very last row of the class, and this is one of the big auditorium rooms in. Where did we have a meeting this last semester?
Mendocino.
So what's the one that's like right across where the Wells Fargo little ATM is?
that's Del Norte.
Del Norte. So it was
You're in that big one.
that big ass room right there,
Yeah.
and I was in the very back, and I swear to God, people were fucking screaming from every part of the room.
Yeah.
Wow, that's aggressive. I definitely didn't experience anything like that during my business classes.
Yeah. Oh, and that's I mean.
Well,
When you open up the box of conversation, you're going to get so many different sides. In a class like that, I mean, it's business. Like, this is what we're talking about, and there's a there's a thought process that can expand out from that. But if you're learning about marketing, you're there to learn about how you can market to certain people. You're not. It doesn't go further than that for the most part.
yeah, and business has like a rigorous methodology, and they have like some science and some mathematical equations to add in there.
Right.
But with social sciences, it's not that much, way more fluid.
Yeah.
And I think that's the difference between a postmodernism department and one that's not. It's very different, and like our departments will show that compared to their departments.
Yeah.
Like, so that I think there's some validity, like what that does to kids and how you teach kids, and like, are kids really better off in like that situation, like seriously, rather than a business? Like, honestly, like your kid comes out of there with a degree like that. I mean, you gotta really question that degree, and like, what did you actually learn? Can you contribute to the society in a positive manner? I don't know.
Well, and so if we're going back to like a previous conversation where we're talking about like social constructions, right?
Yeah.
And whether they exist or not, and things like that. Labeling, right? Like from the left, if they're pointing at the right, saying like, you guys have labeled, it as being white, black, and whatever it may be, and that's like not. It should be all equal, right? But then if you come from the other side, you just call me a fucking racist because of it.
Yeah.
Like, you call me a racist. Isn't that not labeling in itself? That because I voiced my opinion that was against yours. You put me as a racist.
You label them
as
racist
not a label?
without any credible evidence to do so.
Yeah.
So it's baffling how they just do that. You're white and you're male and you're cisgendered, which is a stupid term in itself. Like, you're obviously a racist and you're oppressing everyone around us.
I wrote an essay about it. I wrote an essay. I had to write an essay about, and I ended up having to change it because it was more so like I wrote it like just trying to stir the pot without really having like a serious, credible source behind it. But like
a lot of emotion.
Yeah. But the essay topic was everyone's in there, everyone's classified, right? Whether you're white, you're black, you're gay, you're straight, like shit like that.
It's identity politics.
Yeah. So right, you have your class, and the topic of the conversation was to. Where depending on where you fit, how have you survived, and what kind of issues have you faced? And in this class, in most sociology classes, you get a certain demographic of people, right? And that's no way like trying to sound like a shitbag, but you get more like African American, Mexican. You get that demographic, right? Mm-hmm. And so you could tell that conversation was going to be more tailored. That topic of essay was going to be more tailored to people like that because, for someone like me, I've never experienced anything like that, right? And on the grand scheme of things, that's what would be the argument. So I wrote an essay, and again, this was more without a lot of credibility, and I ended up having to change it a little bit. But I wrote how, being white, being straight, being a male, like, I may not have experienced discrimination, but I'm the reason discrimination exists. Like, I wrote an essay about how I may not have have experienced the situation. But when you think about why racism exists, who do you think about?
Think about the
white people, right? And so you put me into that category. And so I wrote a whole essay on it. And again, it was more of like an emotionally, like you said, motivated essay. And I presented it to the teacher, and there was too many holes in it, for me to actually put forth. But
is this more of a satirical essay where you're kind of joking around where you don't actually believe that you caused all this?
No, so I don't think, like, personally, I caused all of that shit. But like,
you don't think so, but you wrote as if you did.
Right, I wrote as if like that was, because I didn't know what to write about. I was like, I don't know how to write about having.
So you knew you were writing something that was bullshit and you didn't believe in.
Yeah, okay. But I wanted to see like
what would happen.
What would happen, yeah. Right? And it's, I don't completely believe it, but to an extent, like you just said, when you think of who racist, the white supremacy, right? It is white people, and males are the ones who dominate everything. So therefore, they're sexist and shit like that. So it's like, I don't completely believe in it, but I wrote it for a reason. Like, I'm kind of curious to see how this will come off. But I ended up having to change it, and I manipulated it enough. I can't even remember how I did it, but it softened like the concept of it, and it was a little more applicable. But it was interesting when I had to present it to my teacher and have him read it back to me, because he was like, I'm not even quite sure what you're talking about. I was like, oh, okay, so you didn't. Okay, so it's not that harsh.
Well, I'm always so curious, because I worked an election booth on the election day, and it was all women. There was about 4 of us
in California.
In California,
super liberal,
very liberal. And so like when Trump got elected, they were in uproar, just kind of like how your class was. Why is it, I guess maybe a lot of it has to do with living in California. Why is it that we are surrounded by so many far left, so many left-wingers, so many liberals within our society? Do you think a lot of it is branched from sociology? And then for people who go into sociology, like yourself included, what do you go in hoping to achieve?
So I actually went into college with a business major, with the idea that I wanted to do business. Mm-hmm. And
why'd you switch?
So at my junior college, I started out doing business, and then I thought like psychology would be kind of cool. So I started taking psychology classes, and then I wasn't really into it. So then I was like, but psychology and sociology, they have like, at least at the JCU, they had similar classes to take that would kind of garnish the same
prereqs.
Right, and so I was going to, I did 2 years at my JC, but I didn't get enough in either psychology or sociology to get an AA, right? And so technically with the amount of units that I had more directed towards sociology at the time. So I just had my title as being a sociology major. And then with the intention that I would transfer to a school and just get into the business program.
Gotcha.
But most schools have a super impacted business program. And so I applied to Sac State.
Especially Sac State.
With a sociology degree so that I could get in. Just to get into Sac State, and then I was going to switch it to get to, at least that was my thought process at the time, to get into business. And I started taking business classes, and then I was like, shit, I'm never going to fucking graduate because I'm so far behind. To get into the actual program.
You have to do all those prereqs.
Yeah, and to get into the actual program, it's going to be hard. And so I ended up just sticking with sociology. So I didn't really have a goal, like this is what I want out of it. It just kind of happened to be that was what I was going to take.
His last question was a phenomenal question. What is sociology and the sociology majors? What are they aiming at? What is their ultimate goal? Why are they studying this? Like, what are they trying to do with this? Are they trying to make things more
like a career choice, or what do you mean?
Equity? Like, what's the goal of sociology?
A lot of people,
because I don't think they actually have a methodology like other departments.
In terms of career choice, you hear a lot of people wanting to be social workers. Like they want to be.
Why don't they go into social? We have social work.
But you have to. But a lot of. But you. Oh, do they have that as a major?
Yeah, they did.
Oh well, you hear a lot of people that are in. Just like you could have take business classes, but you could have different areas of focus, right? It's the same concept. Yeah. Because like for me, for a while, and still, I'm kind of at the point where, like when I graduate in December. I might want to go and become like a high school or college counselor, and like that would be something of interest of mine. But you have to go back to school for it. So for me, that would be my area of focus coming out of it if I were to go that direction. But I'm taking business marketing because I want to be able to also have the opportunities to get into like marketing field or something like that. But
that would be a good combo, sociology and marketing.
I know that's why I paired it up because I figured like they go hand in hand to an extent.
Yeah, I feel like right now in our society, there's a lot of social issues that are so prevalent and so like overplayed in the media that it almost seems that's like all we talk about nowadays, especially in the mainstream media. So I feel like having a sociology major, you have probably more insight than we do.
Well, and I mean, like I like to think that my beliefs are somewhere in the middle, like where you can see both sides, right? And I'm sure the same thing with yours.
That's what social science and humanities are supposed to teach you, to see both sides.
Right.
Because if you're smart and you're articulate, you can know both sides, what the arguments are, what they're getting at, where each side is right, where each side is wrong. And so that's
track it.
That was the whole point of that education to begin with. That was the basis, but now they steered away. And now they're more.
Well, because again, it goes back to that entitled thing, man. It's like
exactly.
You've been
exactly, and so that's why
fucked over,
and that's why those kids literally aren't.
Sorry.
That's funny. That's why those kids literally aren't as smart or intelligent or as good critical thinkers. They really aren't, and they don't read the classics. They don't know how to think properly. They don't know how to write. They don't know how to do any of that.
Yeah.
And it's terrible because they just you wasted all your money. You literally learned nothing except for an ideology, which you can go learn online and know all the ins and outs in 10 minutes.
But there's so much. I mean, there's so much in sociology, and when you take there's certain professors, right, where it's more open and it's more discussion, it's more theory based, right?
Yeah.
And then you have certain courses where there is statistical data, and they're like talking about like charts, and it's like institutionalized and shit like that, where like it's like that aspect of it, you're like, okay, like that's legit, like that there's proven that this has been like a system that has failed a lot of people.
It's you learn about stats, but you don't learn how the stats are valid or invalid. So you can't tell whether this is a good stat or a bad stat, because ultimately, if anyone who has like cursory knowledge in stats, it's a moral endeavor, because you're picking the stats that arise from everything. Right. You decide when it cuts off, when it stops, and then you're also biased by your personality, because there's so many stats in the world. There's infinite amount of stats. Your personality naturally picks up different stats. So, like, let's say someone who's, like, conscientious, who's a hard worker, and there's a data set, they'll probably more look towards, like, why did these people get to this group? And so they will look at the high earners and say all the high earners went to and they were successful because they had certain traits. They worked hard and whatever. But a more compassionate person, based off their biology, would say, well, these guys were probably more oppressed or they didn't have the same opportunities. So, like, you look at stats differently based on your personality as well. And so that's why learning actually stats are derived and come about, and whether you can judge, well, that's a valid stat or not, that's really important, but you're not taught any of that.
Well, so then what are you supposed to base, I guess, a knowledge base off of, if not? I mean, I feel like a lot of our world is centered on statistics and like on stats and gathering statistics.
Because and you have to decide, well, what statistics are relevant, and you can't answer that by science. That's a differentiation. Because like this stat is more important than this stat, so we're going to look at stat A rather than stat B because stat A is more important. Well, why is it more important? What the hell makes it more important?
So let me ask you this.
So there's a differentiation.
Let me ask you this:
that's when morality and theology and all that comes into play.
If we put this in a bubble, right? And let's put like society in a bubble for a moment, right? And we're the puppeteers, okay? And so if we put a group of people from when they're young, right, in a bubble. And the whole time we kind of slowly, push a certain idea towards them and blah, blah. Do you think that we could shape the way they think?
You definitely shape the way they
think.
Okay, so that right there would be...
can.
That would be the concept of... You mentioned biology a second ago.
Have you heard of the Illuminati, bro?
Yeah, right? You mentioned biology a second ago, but
biology automatically just constrains you to a certain degree. It's like saying chess. Like, there's the rules to chess, and you can't go about those rules and change those rules, but the way you play the game and the moves you make and differentiate, that's what you can change. Okay. And that's what the social constructionist can do. But the rules of chess, that's the...
So think about it from an evolutionary perspective, right? Okay, so
otherwise it's a different game or something.
You put everyone in the same bubble, right? And there's certain people that are benefiting from it. Okay, if we're talking about like an evolutionary perspective,
Well,
if we're pushing, and this is I'm playing devil's advocate, right?
No, I know, and I know where you're going.
And you
I
push
hear these arguments all the time.
Okay, so you push
That's why
these.
I'm laughing. Or
Okay,
like smirking, whatever. I'm not laughing at you. I know exactly what you're saying.
So if you tell me where I'm going.
Because you say like some people are benefiting, then you say, well, why are those people benefiting?
No,
and then. Okay,
so actually, what I was going to say is not just that they're benefiting, right?
Why is society set up? Because that's how cultures are. If I go to China, I know China's set up for Chinese to benefit because it's their culture. So if I go there, I'm the minority. Just because I'm white, I'm not impressing all these Chinese. Does that make sense?
No, I hear you.
I don't know how to read Chinese.
So let me say it and tell me
more than me.
Let me say it and you tell me if this is what you're anticipating me saying. Because my kind of theory here, if you will, is in this bubble, right? You've got so many different people that have different physical attributes, right? Let's say physical at the moment, right? And we're pushing the idea that you have to be able to run fast, like you need to be able to be thin enough to blah blah blah, like right? You have to be in shape and blah blah blah. So the fatter group of people die off from an evolutionary perspective, right? Those people, biologically speaking, did not survive this atmosphere.
Yeah, because they didn't procreate and pass their genes on to the future.
But it was because everything was built around you having to move fast and whatever. But what if it was, okay, let's move a lot slower. Let's, you don't have to worry about running. You don't have to do any of that stuff. Just relax and blah, blah, blah.
Then the opposite would be
true. Opposite, right. So
it wouldn't necessarily the opposite would be true, but it would be more equal.
More equal, right? So when you think about on a grand scheme of things, how much of our societal bubble is a projection of, okay, go this direction, right? And certain people are going to survive off it biologically. Some people are not. And so or some people are going to be more disadvantaged. So not only are they just going to naturally benefit, but some people literally will not survive it. So in that conversation, it opens the argument a little bit more when you're comparing like capitalism to socialism, which I'm not.
I was about to say.
I'm not going that direction.
Well, I'm arguing against you. What I'm saying is I'm pointing things out there, and I'm trying to find the truth in this. And I love that you're coming out from that angle because that's what I appreciate. Like Ben Shapiro has a role, whereas if you disagree,
Ben Shapiro's a fucking man.
Yeah. Ben Shapiro has a beautiful role. If you disagree with me, you go to the front of the line for the Q&A. And so it's always about something that's against him. So. That's how you learn, really.
No, yeah,
and talk to people who aren't like you and see the world in different ways.
So the moral of my point would be, in a capitalistic society, right? It's or let's kind of go back to like the marketing aspect of it, right? In terms of they say you need a new car every so many years. They're trying to intermix how great it is to have a new car. It's very materialistic, and you make money off of it and stuff like that.
When you say they, are you talking about the manufacturer or society?
Just like the companies themselves that are making this, right? And therefore, a group of society will understand it as this is a need to have, right? So they're finding that marketing is finding people's needs, but how much of it is creating one, right?
I don't think it's not. They're not finding people's needs. They're creating needs.
No, but no. They. I
think it's both.
No, in marketing, they will define it. They will define it as we are. They will justify it in the definition that they are finding someone's needs out of certain things. So it's it's both.
You can see it just in Apple, the way they slow down the processing power of their old phones when their new phones come out with the software update.
So now you need one.
Because now people see it as a need because, my phone's fucking slower.
Yeah, exactly.
They claim they do it because of battery life issues, because if you're trying to, because your battery will wear down over years and you're trying to run a bigger, more improved software on that same battery, your battery's going to go down so much.
Right.
That's what they're claiming versus them just doing it and not giving you an option whether to do it. So in a sense, they're creating a need of you having to buy a new phone because of the new software. That's why a lot of people with old iPhones, they refuse to software update because they know they're going to have to buy a new phone because their one they currently have is going to work in a way shittier manner than it previously had before the update.
Upgrade. Yeah.
But that's assuming that you're using your phone almost as a computer, Because if you're using your phone just as a basic telephone, then...
But that's more...
day and age, almost everyone uses their phone as a web search engine, a social media engine, and so many different things.
And I don't mean to cut you off, but to your argument there, for you to not think that like a company is going to try to push you into getting a new phone, you're lying. Because that's the whole point, is they need you to buy something.
And they have to do it because the way we constructed our market is you have to infinitely grow, which is the most idiotic thing I think in the world, because you can't have a business, especially multiple businesses, infinitely grow in a finite world.
Right.
It's simply just not mathematically possible.
Yeah.
And so, in that sense, maybe we set up our markets wrong, or maybe there's a better way to do it. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. But the simple aspect is, the way we have our markets, they are forced to continually grow for their shareholders, for their stakeholders.
Sure.
And so, they have that obligation, and if they don't, they are seen as failing, and then the other competitors will rise above them.
Sure.
And that's just like business bottom line.
But is time not infinite?
What do you mean?
What do you mean by...
Because
I'm not seeing the relation to what he said to that.
Because you're talking that we built our businesses on like an infinite, that they can infinitely grow.
That's what we base our model on.
Yeah.
Which is
the business
inherently flawed.
But time is infinite. Time will go on and on and on.
Yeah, but the business itself...
But you live on a finite planet. And on our finite planet...
For now.
Correct. I guess, for now. But think about, like, the next inhabitable planet is light years away. So, if you think you're going to get there, like, it's not going to happen anytime when these businesses are still alive. And... unless you find a way to, like, teleport, space travel, whatever, But that's a whole different thing.
Let's rein this back in.
But you're saying time's infinite. But it doesn't matter. That furthers my point. Because if time is infinite and you're on this finite planet, you can't have an infinite growing business. It's literally impossible.
And I think to bring it back a little bit, the point was that there is a creation of a need by corporate. There's a need. There's a need that they're creating. If they never came out with another phone and they just kept the iPhone 6, right, or iPhone 7, whatever it may be, and everything was just an improvement of iPhone 7.
It's iPhone 10. You're like way behind, bro.
What iPhone do you have?
I got my flip phone and my iPad or my fucking iPod here. Yeah, exactly. The Razer flip phone. Yeah, which was legit, by the way.
It was.
Didn't have one.
Yeah, one of those are the most badass kids on the planet.
I had a pink one, dude. I got it from my grandma.
Dude, I remember the pink ones. Those are badass.
Yeah. So, anyways.
What you're describing there was an idea that's 100 years old. It's called Say's Law. It's where supply creates its own demand.
Yeah.
And so that idea has been around for so long. And once we kind of discovered that, then that's when it really took off. And now you're starting to see it in modern times. So these old ideas that people thought of are coming to fruition now.
Yeah. But I think what the moral of it was that a lot of it can be produced in a capitalistic society, right? So much of a need can be produced that way. The argument from the sociology is, that shouldn't be a need in the first place, and blah blah blah, right?
And the reason it shouldn't be a need is
it's because and this is gonna, sound like I feel like you already know the answer to this. Is that it benefits some and not all? Because some people can afford it and some people can't, and
but it doesn't mean you shouldn't have it.
No, absolutely. Yeah. But I'm saying that is, that's like coming from that side.
That's
at least from my understanding of what I've gone through classes. Someone else could come in here from a sociology class and totally have a different interpretation of it. So I don't want that to sound like a generalization of that.
I think it's a generalization of sociology through a postmodern lens. And so, exactly what you said, it shouldn't be different. Everything should be equal. The idea of equity, that's postmodernism. If you hear equity anywhere, postmodernism, because that has a hand in it. And then you say, if everything's equal, why would anyone strive for anything?
Right, absolutely.
Just like what you write in your paper. Why the hell should I write an A+ paper when I know I can write a D+ paper and still get an A?
Yeah. That's why socialism doesn't work.
Yeah, and it will never work because it never worked across time and never worked across different cultures. And if it doesn't do those two things, the amount or the idea that it's going to work now is pretty much virtually zero. And that's one of the things we learned from social fucking sciences. But like other than that, like you can't just go and like
who's gonna pay for it? Who's gonna pay for it?
Who creates it and who distributes it?
Yeah.
It's like if you read about all the socialistic and communist countries, and you read actually what was going on and how the people treated each other, it was horrendous. And that's why they never survived, and that's why they collapsed, and they're doomed to collapse. And that's why I always say, like, the societies and they say like values are arbitrary. I don't think they are. There's different values. There's hierarchies of values and what you should predicate over what not. And so all the societies who have held shitty values for hundreds and thousands of years, they've been shitty for hundreds and thousands of years because their values have kept them down. And that's when we can say there's something collectively wrong with the values they hold and their polity, rather than over here in the West, because the West figured out you should predicate the individual over the group, over whatever you are. Everyone's an individual.
Freedom of speech, freedom of ideas.
Well, and that's why you have to have freedom of speech, so then you can talk about it, and you talk about it truthfully, so you can figure out what the hell you're doing.
It's like discussion.
If you can't say something honestly and have an honest discussion, you don't know what the hell's going on.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what
it's
happened
like
in the Soviet
putting everyone in
Union.
the same room that has a same opinion.
Yeah, that's
what
the
are they
echo
going to
chamber.
benefit from?
That's
They're
the
not
echo
gonna
chamber. You're
learn
not
anything.
They're not
learning
learning
anything.
Yeah,
You're just talking to yourself.
exactly. No, I completely agree with that.
Can we go back to needs versus wants?
Yeah.
What do you define as a need and what do you define as a
You're
want?
going to have to read Aristotle.
Yeah.
I don't know. You could look at it like you could look at it on like a micro scale. Like obviously, I need water and shelter, right? But I want a new car, but I don't necessarily need a new car. Like my Honda Civic runs, but I definitely want a new Subaru. So
is your question how you distinguish the need between a want? Sorry, Mark, go ahead.
I think you need to be able to distinguish between the two because just as Gabe's saying, marketers do create needs. But those really aren't needs for the most part. They become needs, but at the same time, it's more of a want. It's more of something that I want to have, that I want to obtain to make my life easier. If you were to embody yourself, say back in like the 1920s, or maybe just before automobiles were coming out, I don't know the specific date. Those would not be needs. Those would be wants. Those would be ideas that maybe haven't even come about yet. Your life would just be a little more difficult or a little bit smaller.
But I think there's a hierarchy of needs. So you have your basic ones, your food, your water, your shelter, and then it gets a little more complicated, like your social needs.
Well, they have that.
That's
Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
That's exactly what it is. I don't know if you've ever taken like HROB classes, which are like human resource classes, but that's what you learn about is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And that's basically what it lays out is just a hierarchy of these needs come first, then these ones, and there's a reason for them. And it's like partly biological and nurture and everything coming together. And then ultimately the pinnacle is the... what's the top one?
It's like spiritual or...
No, it's like...
I'll tell you right now.
meaning or something?
Starts with like an I think.
Well, I don't know the exact name, but it's something very almost like metaphysical or something. Transcendent.
Yeah. Self-actualization. That's really the top one. This one has a lot more. It breaks it down into more categories. But like all those needs like need to be met before you can move on to the next one.
Well, and I think that... Go ahead, sorry.
Well, he said... Well, that's exactly what I think...
Because...
Yeah, I think that's exactly what Maslow got wrong. Because he says you have to start from the bottom, and you can only go step by step all the way up. I think you can still meet other needs and skipping steps,
Sure.
and I can meet different needs.
Different experiences will garnish a certain level, I think.
If you break them into like smaller categories like that. But that wasn't his original one. The original one has bigger chunks, and that's the one where it would be like damn near impossible to skip the steps.
Sure, okay.
Because you can't be thinking about your cognitive needs when you're worrying about your water and your shelter. So,
I think that...
Because those are...
I still think you can skip those steps.
I don't think you can, though, because you
Those are
can't
Those
worry
are
about
needs
your...
you're aiming at, though. And you can still fulfill different needs even though you're not directly...
Okay, so you're saying
If-
could you skip food, water, warmth, and skip security and shelter from food, water, and warmth to get to belonging?
Because if you
do you think
you can find a shelter and then go find food?
Okay, but you're
After
thinking
you
of
have-
it too literally, though.
Okay.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you can skip these steps.
I guess. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. If you're looking at it like that, but you're thinking of it too literally.
So how is he
Well,
thinking
that's how you
about it?
live.
Well, no, because you're looking at these hierarchy of needs, and if like the physiological ones are by far the most important, because you can't live without them. Plain and simple.
True.
So that means none of the other ones are worth a damn if you don't have that first one.
Sure.
And so safety, after that, if your family and shit aren't safe, if you're always worried about getting jacked by a cougar, then safety, if you don't
Are we
have
talking like an older woman, or are we talking about an actual...
Which one?
Yeah, because that might put me at self-actualization and self-esteem.
Now we're skipping
yeah, exactly.
Skipping steps.
Proving you wrong.
Oh man.
But you can do that basically all the way up. And that's basically the basis of it. Yeah, if you have shelter, you can be like, oh, I did this today. I achieved something, so now I have self-esteem needs, right? But it doesn't take over the hierarchy of what's the most important.
So could the argument, and this is more of a micro, view, if you will, in terms of what it is we're looking at. In this discussion, and then I'll move it to a broader. Could you have the bottom three of physiological, safety, and belonging, and not need the other two, but just want them? Because at some point, do you think that some needs and wants, you can't really make the argument of them being one way or the other? So, like, is it really a want or is it really a need? Like, can you distinguish the two? So, like, when you have food, water, warmth, security, shelter, friends, family, community, you may simply want achievement, but you can't get it, right, or something like that. So, like,
or you're not doing the right things to get it.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, can that become a point where like a need and a want are they're moot? Like, there's nothing to prove one way or the other.
I would argue it varies on the individual. Because certain individuals are going to want recognition. They're going to want to be a master at something. They're going to want to have achievement. And some people want to pursue talent. They want to be creative. And through those, they'll get fulfillment and then eventually self-actualization and self-esteem. So to your question, I think it's very subjective. I think it really depends on who the individual is and who they want to become and where they find their fulfillment. Because you can have belonging, and if you have a friends and family, that's your fulfillment. Then you're at self-actualization. Okay. Then you're at self-esteem because you are a master at having a family.
Okay, so let me ask you this then. Okay, let's talk about it in a broader, like a more modern, view. By owning a Lamborghini, have you achieved something?
It depends what you're looking to achieve.
Well, okay, but so if we're...
It all depends on the person.
Okay, so you're keeping it subjective. Okay.
Well, you have to.
Because I would say, right, like, having a
to one person,
Lamborghini,
you may have achieved something.
Yeah.
To another person, if that's not what you want,
right,
then you haven't achieved a damn thing.
Exactly. So I guess it would go back to your point of being just very subjective. But
and I think going back to your original point of question of needs and wants, I think the needs change as society and evolution happens. Because like you need a phone or a laptop or something to access the internet, and that is increasingly becoming more of a need in today's society than it once was. So like the varying degree of needing the access to the internet back in the day, 1800s, it didn't matter because, well, there was no fucking internet.
Exactly.
But nowadays, almost everything is on the internet, and if you don't have that, you put yourself at a disadvantage.
Sure.
So then to the consumer, it becomes a need. And so it's saying, okay, I do need a smartphone so I can have the same advantages that my other counterparts within society are having. And so... But the needs change as time goes on.
But that would be like, okay, because I agree, but that would be to say like, okay, if we were to prevent that change, we wouldn't be able to, we shouldn't progress. Because every new idea, new item and things like that, that is someone's, something they put together or that society has moved forward with. So when you look at it that way, which I'm not disagreeing with, it almost sounds like it's a negative connotation to think that
as we've progressed, in my opinion.
I think it can be a positive or
Right.
negative.
Okay. Yeah, because I think that as much as these needs and wants have changed as we've gone along, right? Like now all of a sudden you need, or you need the internet and you didn't in the past, right? But the internet itself was an achievement for someone to come up with and society to have created. Because now you can sit, I could pick up my phone right now and call someone halfway across the world and be able to communicate with them. Where before, once you're that far away, you might not ever see them again.
So yeah, I think that's a perfect segue because you're talking about like the internet being an achievement for somebody, but then almost it becomes down into the belonging part because of all the social media and then like being able to connect with someone all the way across the world as simple as just dialing 7 numbers into the phone. And so it's almost like as you progress, like things can move down the hierarchy of needs.
So it's almost like a hierarchy of wants that have like this. You could make the argument that this could be a hierarchy of wants too, right? Because as time progresses, different things come around that may before have been a want but are now a need, and they can give you the same result.
So based on your circumstances, your needs and wants can flip.
And right,
shift
and you can gain the same. You can still get the same result. You can start to feel belonged, or you can have a feeling of belonging by having a want that was achieved in having a phone that can call halfway across the world, right, or across the world. So
you're saying that wants fulfill needs.
All right, Captain Newman.
You
exactly said it just like
trying.
So what you're saying is,
I'm trying to understand the point there.
No, I know.
I'm just saying what I said was needs can like move down, and in that sense, like that need of the internet all of a sudden became more prevalent, more important in today's society than it once was.
Well, and my point was that at some point, needs and wants
they can interchange.
They can interchange. They could be indistinguishable because you can get the same thing.
Because like maybe
so
back
a want
in
can give you a feeling of belonging, but so could the need, obviously.
Yeah.
But the internet can give you the feeling of belonging, but is it really a need? Now it is, but before it wasn't. But people could still achieve it.
But is it a false sense of belonging?
How would it be a false sense of belonging if we're comparing this time to that time?
If you're it depends
comparing
what
now
you,
to old.
You decide is belonging. You personally. So belonging to Gabe may be having a shit ton of Facebook friends, but belonging to you may be having like only in-person friends. It depends what you decide is what belonging means to you.
Well, I guess it would be the argument is like we can't go back. We can't just get rid of everything and be like, okay, fuck it, we're going to go back to just spears and hunting.
Well, you could. Some people do.
Oh, but I'm saying, like, but the entire world's not going to go that direction.
You're giving that idea to the entire world.
Yeah, it's not going to work. So you have to
live. You're a Trump supporter in sociology class.
Exactly.
You're going to be hell.
Exactly. It's going fucking hell's going to break loose. But I mean that as we progress, and in my opinion, we are. It's a progression, right? If we're able to create these things, that's a progression, and in that process, you can't just go backwards entirely and just be like, okay, fuck it, no more of any of that. Let's just get back to these basics because these concepts on the hierarchy of needs here can be, applied to things in our society nowadays. Hence, to the internet.
It's all applicable to like the time you're living in.
But if you compare it now to then it makes us just feel like we're big pieces of shit. Because it's like back then they didn't need internet to have a sense of belonging.
It kind of goes. It kind of ties in.
When you compare it, it makes you feel like shit. But at the same time, this is the world we live in. What are you trying to? What's your point by saying that we don't need it? Because it obviously is something that is real and it happens and it's provided as much as it has. You can't just be like, okay, I'm done.
It kind of ties in with what I was saying on our last podcast where I was saying, like, all boats rise with the tide, right? That saying? It's almost like that same thing. Your needs as a society can also, like, change and rise differently depending on the society you're living in now.
So I guess another question that would come, and we haven't heard from you in a while, Mike, so I want to hear from you.
But, for a while.
Yeah.
I don't think so, but alright. I guess a while is like 2 minutes.
Yeah, that's a long time. Like normally you're butting in and you're having something, but
I was letting them speak, you know. Well, they had some good ideas too, and like they were talking about some good stuff, and like I was only buttoned in because like I know like that stuff, and like I've been studying that for a while, so that was just what I was really interested in. And you were putting up some good points.
Yeah,
so,
sparking a conversation.
Yeah.
But shit, what was I gonna say to that point there?
All boats rise.
I don't know what I was gonna say. Doesn't matter.
I don't think.
All right.
I agree. I definitely found myself on the same train of thought about where all boats rise. I think about how like if people don't have problems, they create problems. So it kind of feels the same way. It's like if people don't have needs, they create needs and they create wants and things.
Yeah, I think people do that with definitely needs and wants. They create wants, they create needs for themselves because it's such a want that like. To them, all of a sudden it becomes a need, you know. So, but that's where it's like it can flip flop.
But that is solely based on a comparison, right? From our society to previous societies, right? When you think like, oh, is this really a need? You could be.
I don't think it.
Can't you just be comparing? No, not always. But I'm saying, okay, going back to the internet, for example, they survived without it.
Yeah.
Now we have it, and some people will make the argument, well, do we really need it? And it's like. Today, yes. In today's world, you do. But if you compare it to then, it doesn't sound like you wouldn't need
I think it depends on the individual. Because you can 100% like live without the internet. So, I guess,
okay, so if you want to live
it depends if...
in a social environment compared to like...
to you. Okay. Like, I think it's an individual level. Because if you're somebody that lives up in the mountains in Montana,
that's fair.
Off the grid, no internet, like...
They can be totally happy.
Yeah, they can be completely blissed. They can have self-actualization, and they can reach the top pinnacle of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and they can not see the internet a day in their lives.
That's fair.
You know?
That makes total sense.
It's totally like on the individual, their experiences, what they want, is almost what dictates their needs as well.
They may not be a primary user of internet, but let's say like they are in Montana. They still need it somewhat because they need the companies to make their clothes and make their guns, and they need the lumbering mills to use internet and computers and all of that to like get up there. So like, not directly using it, but other people need it to supply them so they can live on their own.
But some people are still crazy enough that they literally do everything themselves.
Is it crazy?
Well, it's crazy to me because I don't live that lifestyle. Yeah. To them, it's the best way to live.
I hear you.
Like people live in the Amazon.
Like kudos to them. It doesn't matter. Whatever makes you happy.
Alexander Supertramp. I think of him.
Who's that?
No, who Alexander Supertramp was?
I don't think you'd ask if you didn't know.
Good point, Gabe.
Yeah.
This guy with the
Exactly.
I like it. It's a sharpshooter.
Yeah. Shoot or shoot.
Supertramp was he was an interesting guy. He got a degree, graduated. Actually, let's see if I know. He graduated some college at the age of I think 22, and just decided that he didn't want anything to do with society. He.
What's about Into the Wild?
Yeah, that's exactly who it is.
Oh, that's what you're talking about.
Yep, that's
Oh shit! Okay, yeah.
Ditched his car.
That's what the movie's based on.
Yeah, it's his life.
I mean, yeah, but at the very end...
Well, he dies.
Yeah, but at the very end he writes in his little journal that happiness is better shared than it is by yourself. Like, remember, because he goes crazy.
That's like Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot, where, like, the scariest thing you can do to a human is, like, isolate them from everybody.
Yeah.
Like,
I think it's the quickest way to go insane.
Yeah.
Oh, because you need people to stay sane.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, like, I mean, he just pretty much kind of went in the wild. Granted, he was craving human interaction. But I just think about, like, he was able to survive without all of it. And I think if he would have had someone to accompany him, he would have been extremely happy and just would have lived life very fulfilled.
Yeah.
And I think kind of going back to Maslow's hierarchy, and my point of how being on the internet, maybe having all those Facebook friends, gives you that false sense of community. That's where, like, I always kind of think, I feel like I always go back to this point. At what point do you have to, I think you do have to identify a need versus a want within your own life and figure out, okay, is this actually giving me a false sense of belonging or self-esteem and self-actualization? I mean, why do we see so many suicides in the age? I was looking at this the other day. I think it's the age between like 35 and like 40s. You see a lot of male suicides. You do. And I think a lot of it, and Peterson talked about this, you see a lot of individuals coming, especially males, coming into midlife crises. Because we live our youth in this kind of like facade where we think we're in this hierarchy and we think we're climbing it, but then all of a sudden I think you come to a realization where, wow, like this really isn't what I thought it was. And so like and then you could pull sociology into this and projection and how much influence you have. But I think that's why I argue it's like you have to figure out where your true needs and true wants are and where you kind of fall into that and figure out which ones you need to operate upon. Because at a certain level, there's going to be so much influence and so much influence upon yourself that where you're almost acting delusional. And in a lot of the writing that I've been reading lately, it seems that a lot of young men notice this trend throughout history that they act very delusional and they try to fill this emptiness with other things. They fill it with Facebook friends, they fill it with girlfriends, they fill it with love. Alcohol. Yeah, I mean, they can turn to a bunch of different variety of things. And so you have to get to like the marrow of who you are as a man, as a woman, as a human being, and kind of just understand where your needs and wants are, and I think act upon those. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about this all the time.
Well, I think what you're basically saying is like they need meaning in their life, and that's why he says like you have to aim for meaning because that will sustain you through life's tragedies and its ups and downs. If you have meaning, you will be able to transcend all those negative feelings and all the suffering and all the dread in your life. And if you don't, then that's going to overtake you and take you down, and you maybe are going to commit suicide because you have no meaning and you think living's worthless and why live? I might as well just shoot myself and just get it over with.
So you say you bring sociology into this. Emil Durkheim actually has Durkheim has an entire theory on this, and it has to do with suicide, and it has everything garnished around moral value, like a morality, right? So when you're talking about, when do you achieve self-actualization, right? Do you actually achieve it, or is it just a false sense of it? In terms of like a job, okay? So I've got a job that pays me, let's just hypothetically say I've got, a family and I make enough for my family to be happy, right? But the idea that I need to make more, like I have to have more, otherwise blah, 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 and all of a sudden, you lose your job, right? And you fall into like a deep depression and you feel like you're worthless and blah, blah, blah. The concept of having a morality about you, whether it's a societal like influence or like your significant other telling you and helping you realize that, hey, you have what you need, going to the very base. Like you have your family, you have a shelter at the moment. Like it's like this, you have to in Durkheim's theory, you have to have this moral value in order to know when you've transcended to the next level. Because in a situation you could drop all, and if no one's there to help you realize it, you will commit suicide. Because no one's there to help you realize that you have what you need, right? You have your basic needs. And it's like this, it's a really interesting theory if you want to look it up, but it's...
Is he saying that you have to have someone else to help you realize, or could you...
You could have it from within yourself, so like religion could be a big part of it, you could have, which is a societal impact, but does
that circle back to like meaning though? They need meaning?
Right.
Is he equating morality and meaning?
Essentially, yes. Like you have to have an internal, meaning, and that you're worth something, right? But in his theory, it from what I understood is that a lot of it is an external influence that's allowing you to see it. Because if you're stuck alone, like this guy, right? You said the fastest way to go crazy because no one's there to help you, kind of slow you down. And without having an external influence, you don't have that like balancing act. And so when you have a situation where you are depressed and you have this, no one's there to help you realize that everything's okay, right? And you take your own life because there's no influence to help you get there. And so...
Yeah, and because humans are a communal animal by nature, and that's why like talk therapy works. If you're able to talk to someone and they actually genuinely listen and you're able to get your honest answers out, you feel better afterwards. That's why if you're nervous about something and you talk to somebody about it, and you do it honestly, you'll walk away from there less nervous about whatever you was before. Totally. Because it's this natural instinct.
Yeah. Yeah, so...
Makes sense.
Makes me think of Adam and Eve.
Well, that's the premise of it. God, I had such a good tail off, but I forgot what it was.
With Durkheim's theory?
Well, that and, like, religion and, like, how does that fold into religion? but I forgot my line of thinking right there. But
Want me just to say that again?
we don't want to go back.
Yeah. Let me repeat.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna buy a Ford Fusion.
Just kidding.
And that's why that's like the existential part where you'll only know what is like meaningful to you and like what you find meaningful. It's like falling in love. They say like, well, how do we know we're in love? Like you know when you're in, like you fall in love, like because that's the existential part, and you have to experience it to know what it is.
Right.
And so like, well, you can say, well, love doesn't exist. Well, does it or does it not?
Well, and okay, so think of it.
You would only know that.
Like happiness. So same thing with love, right? If someone is to live in isolation the whole time. Is it an automatic reaction? And I kind of answer my own question, but like to know what happiness is. Like, do I need to, like, if I lived by myself my entire life, right? Would I know what makes me happy? Or is it something that someone needs to kind of help guide me in saying like, hey, having this will actually make you feel good or something like that? Is that like a natural reaction to know? Or is it something that someone kind of guides you in understanding? Because it's like...
I feel like it could be both, because like someone could say something where like you seem really like happy and like genuine and really into this, like, and then maybe you discover like that kind of clicks a light bulb for you and you're like, I really like that. Yeah. That intrigues me, and then you further pursue it, and then that makes you further happy.
Yeah.
I feel like it could be both.
Yeah. You should look up Durkheim's theory.
Have you watched?
It's interesting.
Was it Master Hunter or Mastermind or something on Netflix?
Oh yes, Mindhunters.
Mindhunters, that's what it is.
Dude,
Mindhunters. Yes, yeah.
Is that
great,
the one with
great fucking
the FBI agent and
that I love that
serial killers?
That's
glad
you brought that up.
That's a good show.
Because that for our area of study, like that is so it is incredible that show, and they talk about Durkheim. No, look up anomie, theory of anomie down there. You can it'll probably just give you a broad description of it. But anomie is that concept of moral. It's part of like his like theory on suicide, and anomie is that concept of not knowing your moral value.
Mm. Have you watched Black Mirror at all?
Yeah.
Oh, dude, I bet you had some fun with that show.
Yeah, I've seen
that show goes deep.
Yeah, they got some pretty fucked up shit in that.
Yeah.
See right here.
The idea of anomie means the lack
I'm just gonna stare at it.
normal.
I forget that we're doing
this. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, August, for volunteering.
The idea of anomie means the lack of normal, ethical, or social standards. This concept first emerged in 1893 with French sociologist Emile Durkheim. Normlessness is a state
Popcorn Gabe.
where the expectations of behavior are unclear and the system has broken down.
When he says system, he's talking about like, but it can be both external, but a lot of it's internal. Because when the system breaks down, is when you're unable to feel, happiness. You're unable to know what it's like to be happy, or you know what it's like to achieve something. When he says the system's broken down, that's what he's implying. So it's like kind of a combination of both external and internal, because that's when you would fall into like a depression, essentially.
Sounds like who was that? Was that Cantu? Did you show me that video?
Cantu on the show?
No.
Oh, Cantor? I'm thinking of Ernest Cantor.
Who are you talking about?
The video you sent me.
That I just sent you?
Yeah.
Albert Camus?
Camus, yes.
Albert Camus is a beast.
This feels like Camus. The state where the expectations of behavior are unclear, system is broken down, life is absurd.
Life is the absurdity of life.
There's no purpose. There's no meaning. Philosophical suicide.
Just a bunch of random words to the viewers.
Is that,
like, what the hell is he saying?
Is that you
These don't even make sense.
Is that you ending the podcast?
Incoherent.
Rambling on.
Is that him ending the podcast?
Yeah.
Trailing off?
Yeah. Is he schizophrenic? What's going on? Is he talking to himself? What's going on?
Giving insight of how absurd is just absurd.
Do you ever explore ideas with like how like we could end up in the future, and like kind of like Black Mirror-ish, where it's like all these different versions of the future and AI and all these other interesting things.
Dude, some of that shit is so fucking scary watching it because it's just like
Kind of freaks you out a
kind
bit.
of freaks you out. You're like, I mean, so one of them that if you've been watching it, you've seen it then, but like the idea or it's a product, but where if your significant other dies, it can pull all of their information and data from their Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, all their social media, anything that they've ever said, anything that they've ever liked, pull all of that and regenerate that human being almost robotically, like it's a new human, but it's all of their data online, and so like.
That's exactly what the Black Mirror episode is.
I'm talking about that.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about that episode.
Yeah.
I'm saying that specific episode.
So this was Gabe's idea, guys.
Yeah.
Let's write down, copyright it. Let's go.
Yeah. But that episode, when you're talking about in the future, that is what scares me to think that like that very well could be in our future where you recreate someone and you believe
the concept that even in just the idea of that becoming a thing is that social media is the real you, right? And like
it's parts of the you.
That's what I'm saying. That's what they're saying is like they're pulling that stuff and they're making that, assuming that is who you are.
Yeah,
but so much of social media is not really who you are, but a projection of who you want to be.
Yeah,
you know?
And that's exactly what like Ray Kurzweil is working on, like with AI, and he's trying to regenerate his father, and that was like his whole mission. And so that's basically what he's trying to do is just recreate a person like.
That's scary, man.
I think that's terrible because you never get over that.
Exactly,
person.
it's like you never learn to accept it.
Yeah, and then
that's happened
because like death and life is just like the constant cycle of like our
you can't avoid it.
existence.
That's something you can't avoid.
Yeah,
and so,
it would be unhealthy. It's
exactly.
it's like having your partner as like a sex doll. It's not like a real person or anything.
Yeah.
It's like, I mean, come on, that's a terrible idea.
That was that episode, pretty much.
But do you ever think that, or have you played around with the idea that we'll give like birth to like an artificial version of like humans, and that's like the next step in evolution?
Give birth?
What do you
Define
mean?
giving birth.
Like creating AI, like creating.
Is this a Matt Black Mirror's episode?
No, this is what.
This is like what a lot of evolutionists and theorists believe is that we'll eventually give birth, in a sense, to artificial
like create
reality, artificial like society where you can like download your consciousness.
Fuck that shit, dude.
And
Matrix.
It'll become indistinguishable from what we're living right now. But that's basically the singularity. He basically described the singularity, where computers and AI get so powerful, none of this will exist.
I hope I'm not alive for that.
Because like the way we have computers right now, and like them being able to produce their own things, it's at a rate where it's faster than like what humans can produce. But eventually, it's going to get to a point where AI is so advanced, so knowledgeable that it could learn 10,000 years worth of information in 10 minutes. And so, like, when it exponentially learns on itself, that's when it'll, like, ultimately decide what the future is. And it'll play by its own rules. And
that's
it'll tail off.
That's scary.
That's what a lot of people think, and it's interesting to think about because we're really, like, not that far from that type of reality.
Sure. That's fucking scary.
It may come, like, faster than we think, too.
Yeah. Or
it comes a little slower, we don't know.
But we're creating something
we're
so
inching
fast.
there every day, we're inching there step by step by step. And
well, it's like one of those things where you think, like, oh man, we're, in a smaller scale, we're a foot away from that, but by tomorrow we could gain 2 feet. Just with so many things coming together at once.
There's so much variability there.
Yeah, you think you're this far, but you end up doubling it just based on one thing, or one invention or whatever it may be.
Yeah.
So fuck that. Hopefully, I'm not around.
That's what a lot of people say. Like that is like I feel like 99% of people's immediate jerk reaction is like fuck that.
Yeah, I don't want that. I do not want that.
That's what like Elon Musk's whole thing about. Like he thinks it's gonna like destroy us and it's gonna be terrible for us.
I think it's fucking fascinating though, and I think it's something that doesn't simply get brought up enough in conversations because like you're not the one producing the AI, but there's people out there that are so fucking far in this like journey, this rocket propelled journey that AI and virtual reality and augmented reality, all these things are like on the path of, but we're just not on the cutting edge of it. That it seems so fucking far out there, but I feel like it's really right.
Well, but I think, and I bet if you asked, if you were to sit down and talk to some of those people, and like, what are the benefits of it? They have probably real benefits as to why this would be, right? And right now we just see it as it's foreign and it's bad.
Maybe we're not seeing all the benefits.
Maybe we're not seeing all the
watching
benefits.
Too many Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah, exactly.
Very well possible. Have you guys heard about Saudi Arabia?
With Sophia, how
They
the joke is about Saudi Arabia is that they gave citizenship to a robot before they gave it to a woman.
What?
Yeah,
That's a thing?
yeah. That's the joke about it.
This happened?
Well, this is not it.
No, this is not it.
But it was at a huge technological conference, and she was asking questions, or she was being asked questions. She was answering them like a human would.
But they gave her citizenship?
They gave her citizenship, but they don't give her women's.
Wait, so the robot is a female robot? Like, in the sense that they named it Sophia and they gave it, like, female traits or something?
Yeah, and female is, like, the archaic symbol of chaos, so wherever that ensues.
Huh?
And they give her facial expressions, they give her hand gestures. Like,
Why don't you just look that up?
She's able to do, like, insane things and have genuine. I mean, look at her.
Holy that's fucking Ex Machina
that
right there.
That is Ex Machina.
That is Ex Machina in real life.
Yeah.
Motherfucker.
Hopefully she doesn't see the color blue in the sky.
Wait, Saudi Arabia did this?
Yeah.
So and they put her in front of a conference. I mean, it seemed like some of the questions were a little jaded.
It seemed
targeted.
scripted.
It did seem scripted.
It didn't seem natural.
That looks so fucking creepy.
But I mean, this is real.
Yeah.
Like this is happening like
100%
all the time. Like she's one of the we're talking about cutting edge. She's one of the top AIs right now.
Look at her mechanics working back there in her head. She talks.
I mean, and these are all her own thoughts, her own. I mean, who knows where they're getting them from? But
yeah, he could just be reading off a script, and that computer knows when to start talking, when to stop talking, based off what he says.
Very true.
But it's not far away from.
Is that what's happening though?
What?
Is that what's happening? It's a scripted interview.
It seemed like it. It seems very unnatural if you listen to the interview. I haven't seen this interview, but the one that they announced her at in their first interview, it seems very scripted.
I hope well, it's too late. I'm already here. But I was like, fuck, I hope I'm long gone before this shit actually becomes...
And the worst part about this
is... It's right around the corner.
I know.
Yeah. The worst part about this is you can't just stop making technology because then your enemies will keep making technology and destroy you. So it's like, God fucking damn it, we gotta make the best technology in the world and we gotta be first. Otherwise we're gonna get destroyed by North Korea or Russia or whatever.
It's a matter of getting there first.
Yeah. Whoever gets there first will have the power. Decide how things go.
That's incredible.
I think it's quite incredible as much as it is terrifying.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. It's like a nightmare coming to reality.
I mean, look at this girl.
What the fuck?
Dude, this is hugely
Look at this guy.
popular in the
That's a robot?
Asian culture.
That's not a robot.
That's not a robot. That's a person.
Yeah, I'm like, fuck you, dude. That's a real person.
We're gonna come back a year later. It's gonna be an actual robot.
Oh my god,
that dude looks like a robot.
I know. Yeah,
they did that on purpose.
Exactly.
What's the guy that looks most like a robot?
Yeah.
Who's the most robot?
Hey, sir, you look like a robot. We need you to come do this interview.
Yeah.
So this is a chick. Look this up. This is a robot. That shit's crazy.
So this robot is making eye gestures and
Facial
moving its
expressions.
mouth and winking its eye.
I think Gabe's getting turned on.
It's a seductive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct myself here.
Gabe's getting turned on here. All right. Well.
Imagine one of your
That's
friends having a
scary.
robot wife. You know how much shit he's gonna get from everybody.
Well, think about it. Like that's like. I mean, like
Yeah, right. Some people are going to be like, I bet she never talks back.
yeah, that's.
We could probably talk about this for a fucking.
I wonder how this makes
they're
women
already
feel.
You know they're
Like
already
being
doing
replaced by
that
a
in
robot.
There's
Japan.
no men. You notice that there's no like robotic men here.
That's
all
It could be though.
You know they're already
Be
doing
rich
that
cougars.
in Japan.
Yeah, veteran husband.
Yeah, well,
6 robots.
We already said cougars will take us to self-actualization. So yeah.
Yeah.
They're already way ahead of this in Japan. You know that, right?
They have
already-
sex.
They
like,
have sex robots
partners
that
and
they
stuff, yeah.
use, that they pay for. Yeah.
Yeah.
No,
I'm
it's
going to-
deep.
I'm
Because
never going to China.
their society's so much different than our society.
But some of it's different. And some of it, you know, why Japan's ahead of everybody and why they do so good and why they have like this capitalistic system over there.
Who? China
Yeah, in Japan.
or Japan?
Why they're so successful in such a small country and like, but they're so rich and powerful. Because after World War II, our generals went over there and helped rewrote their constitution. And now they had more American ideals in there, and so that's why it really fostered and came
Really?
in nowhere. And otherwise, it wouldn't have gotten this far, if they kept doing what they were doing. So they went to the emperor and they forced him to write things in their constitution, so it wouldn't happen again.
So now we're looking at a robotic sex doll.
Her name's Naharani. It's like prostitute.
Was it eHarmony?
Yeah. Yeah.
Really?
No. Her name is Harmony.
Oh, okay. There's
Harmony,
an
the sex
eHarmony.
robot.
Yeah,
You got the sex robot?
You gotta market
It could be a
your
pimp.
company.
It could be a here, untapped market, dude. Be a pimp of a bunch of fucking robotic chicks.
They're not human. You
They're
can be a
not
pimp
human.
of robotic
Yeah,
chicks.
exactly.
You gotta
Make hella money.
diversify your portfolio.
Yeah.
Gotta make some
That's
money.
where we're investing.
Yeah, I'm gonna invest in that so I can become a robotic pimp.
Yeah.
I mean, she looks. No, I mean not.
Dude, there's some weird motherfuckers out there that would definitely have sex with that.
A good Black Mirror episode is when someone has one of these and then someone hacks in and uses a robot to kill the guy.
What? I haven't seen that episode.
No, I'm saying that would be a good episode.
Oh.
seen that episode. No, that's not a good episode, but damn, that would be a good episode.
Yeah, that would be.
That was gonna freak me
Should
out.
email
That's
the
gonna give me
writers.
nightmares.
Yeah. We're writing it.
Yeah, right.
Gabe
Exactly.
Mirrors.
Gabe Mirrors. That's
We'll
right.
see you on Netflix in about a year.
If I had to choose between
Oh, that's
April and
creepy.
my wife, I think I would choose April.
That's because he doesn't have a wife. He's making shit up.
His wife is right there to the right.
But he's married, but he doesn't actually have a wife. If that makes sense.
Yeah. She looks like a Barbie.
This is weird. I don't like this topic.
Making you a little uncomfortable.
Yeah, I don't like these fucking dolls and shit.
Getting fully torqued over there.
Yeah. This is fucking freaking me out.
This is freaking me out.
And look at these girls.
I thought they were gonna show the actual.
I wonder if when they're gonna start mass producing these and just hauling them out.
They're in Toys R Us. What are you talking about?
Guys Are Us? We go to Guys Are Us instead of Toys R Us.
Guys
and you
R
go
Us?
pick your
Oh
doll.
my god! Look at all these little dolls.
They definitely, yeah. They're definitely already mass producing these.
I can't even imagine what it's talking to the guy who makes these. Like how he thinks about people and
Dude,
What if he looks at everyone as a robot?
yeah.
Or
He may
he-
not be able to distinguish.
Or he's just a Bill Gates guy and he just wants to make a buck. He sees a market, he sees no one's in the market.
That can
Money.
very much.
That's called being a smart businessman, being lucrative.
Yeah.
Well, I know we got any other topics.
We can talk about I'm hungry. We can talk about.
10 o'clock.
End on sex robots.
Yeah.
Well, way better to end.
Yeah. No
Sex
better way than
robots.
sex robots.
Yeah.
Alright, I think that wraps up episode 5.
Thanks for joining us,
Thanks,
Gabe.
Thanks for having me.
Second
man.
guest ever.
Hey,
you know,
thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well.
Oh, I thought it was the first guest, dude.
Dang. Sorry, man. We did what we could.
We had some good conversations, so
We'll
I think
definitely
we
have
did.
to have you back.
Yeah, please.
We'll
Thank you for
definitely have to
having
have
me.
you back. Yeah, I knew you would be a good guest. There's some people you know just gonna be a good guest on a podcast.
Yeah.
I think we're all excited to have you, and yeah, I think
Thanks,
you delivered. You didn't
Thank
fall
you.
short, definitely. All right.
All right.
And that being
Peace
said,
out.
Till next time.
see you guys.